All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. It's Tuesday, September the 12th. This is the Town of Spencer regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen for the month of September. With that, we do have our board present tonight. Mr. Miller is unable to attend, but we do have the other 5 members of the board here this evening. So with that, we will ask Ms. Sledge to give our invocation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we're gathered here tonight with concerned citizens, guests, appointed board and committee members, staff, and elected leaders, my prayer is for wisdom to guide and direct our work for the betterment of Spencer and its people. I want to share with you a piece written in 1904 called A Prayer for the Day. It is used throughout the world. Keep us, O God, from pettiness. Let us be large in thought, in word, in deed. Let us be done with fault-finding and leave off self-seeking. May we put away all pretense and meet each other face to face, without self-pity and without prejudice. May we never be hasty in judgment and always generous. Let us take time for all things. Make us to grow calm, serene, gentle. Teach us to put into action our better impulses, straightforward and unafraid. Grant that we may realize it is the little things that create differences, that in the big things of life we are at one. And may we strive to touch and to know the great, common human heart of us all. And, O Lord God, let us forget not to be kind. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board. Go ahead and give fair warning. We do have big storms coming through, so if we do lose power, we do have a generator, so if power goes out, do not be surprised. We will now review the agenda for additions or deletions, and then move for adoption of the agenda. So, board, are there any additions or deletions that need to be made to the agenda this evening? Hearing on, staff? Are there any?
No, sir.
Okay. Board, is there a motion to approve the agenda before you tonight?
So moved.
A second.
There's a motion by Mr. Morgan and a second by Mr. Howe. All in favor? All right. All opposed? And the agenda is approved unanimously. We will move to recognitions, and Mayor Pro Tem has a recognition to make.
I would like to recognize Mrs. Claire Cantu, a beloved and well-respected teacher, 3rd grade at North Rowan Elementary School. At the end of the last school year in May, I had the pleasure of attending and speaking at the Spencer J.C.'s Distinguished Service Awards banquet. It made me very happy that evening to see Claire Cantu was awarded the Outstanding Young Educator for the North Rowan area. I had the pleasure of knowing what a top-notch teacher she is because I have seen and heard about her in action. I was not surprised, therefore, to learn at the beginning of this year that in August that Mrs. Cantu was honored with the prestigious North Carolina J.C.'s Outstanding Young Educator Award for her outstanding dedication and work in shaping young minds. Now, this was for the entire state, so this was quite an honor. She puts her students first and inspires all who know her. Her classroom is filled with laughter, curiosity, love, and knowledge. When people used to ask me how I survived in education for 43 years, I said I found something to laugh about every day. If you don't, you won't make it. So that laughter in the classroom does help, and it doesn't mean they're not learning. She always is at the top of her game as a team player with co-workers and parents too. So sometimes we hear a lot of bad news about public education, but take a moment this evening to celebrate Miss Cantu and the work that she does at North Rowan Elementary School. We are blessed to have Claire Cantu and many others in our Rowan-Salisbury school system. Best wishes for success to all staff and students and administrators and supervisors in this school year.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We are truly blessed by the staff that we do have here in the North Area schools. And so we're very fortunate for folks like Ms. Cantu. We will now move into public comment. We do have quite a few folks that are signed up this evening. And so as a reminder, public comment is limited to 3 minutes, and only those that have signed up ahead of time, right up until 6 p.m., will be allowed to speak this evening. And we will call you up individually. And again, with the 3 minutes, just because we do have so many that are signed up, if I do have to cut you off at 3 minutes, please don't take that personally. It's just to make sure that everybody that has signed up has an opportunity to speak this evening. The other thing I want to note is we have received a good bit of written correspondence this week, including one that is printed in before you. And then additionally, all the others that we have received have been emailed to the board for your information this week. Okay, so with that, we will start with our first speaker, and that is Patricia Kelly Murphy.
Good evening.
Good
evening.
I'm Patricia Kelly Murphy, 1000 Hawkinstown Road, Salisbury. Well, I think I'm in Salisbury now. I'm not so sure anymore. Anyway, I'm a transplant. I've been transplanted here for 30 years, and I chose Hawkinstown for a reason. That reason being, it was a close-knit community. I felt loved. I felt wanted there. My husband and myself were made welcome from day one. I don't really agree with this bringing in these 142 townhomes. First of all, it's going to mess up the whole culture of the neighborhood. Second of all, it's going to cause a whole lot of extra traffic on Hawkinstown Road. Right now, I see the traffic going through there 60, 70, 80 miles per hour. And it's just, you think about that and you think about the other traffic that these buildings are going to bring, and it's going to be horrendous. Not only that, you start thinking about the construction. The construction is going to have a detriment on the road too, because you're going to have these big equipment coming in. We have all of this extra air pollution with the dust and all that. And we have elderly people out there. I'm elderly myself, and I don't want to have to smell that and destroy my lungs. So I'm definitely against it.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next speaker is Dr. Teague Benson Moore.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Tion Benson Moore, and I'm a product of the Hawkinstown community. I would like to begin by appealing to everyone as an individual versus in a professional capacity. First, I would like to address a comment by the Town of Spencer staff that stated that the residents self-labeled the area as Hawkinstown. Hawkinstown was established as a community in the 1870s, which predates the establishment of the Town of Spencer. According to historical documents, Reverend Samuel S. Hawkins, through his association with John S. Henderson, a land agent, he was able to purchase land in quantity and to establish the community known as Hawkinstown. After establishing the community, he was the founder, builder, and spiritual leader of Hawkinstown St. Luke Baptist Church in 1879. There are additional published historical texts that reference the community of Hawkinstown, as well as the Hawkinstown Community Club, which is still in existence. I felt that this was important to share with you all because it lays precedence for the existing land and the concerns of the community at large. Hawkinstown is one of the county's first communities settled and maintained by African Americans post-slavery. Our oldest known ancestor is Mr. Samuel S. Hawkins Sr. He was a slave who was brought to America from Africa. This land and the community has a significantly deep meaning to the heirs who have inherited this land, which was once worked and farmed by our ancestors. As a child, I myself farmed the land personally, right beside my grandfather. Through conversations, my grandfather shared with me the visions of the community of Hawkinstown, a place for single-family homes where children were comfortable playing in their yards and with their neighbors, and a quiet place for retirement. My grandfather fought on more than one occasion against developers and entities who were trying to come in and build apartments right in the center of the community of homes. I'm here today to continue his peaceful fight. We would like to ask that you vote no to rezoning Hawkinstown community, specifically the parcels that have been identified to be prime land for 142 or 153, where I saw somewhere else, townhomes. This equates to about 420 to 500 additional people to the town. We ask that you allow it to remain an agricultural residential district and that it does not change to a residential Main Street transition district. Even if the property owners of those parcels requesting the rezoning to move forward with the annexation, North Carolina general statutes require that all owners of real property within the area must also sign a petition requesting the annexation, and this will not be forced upon the residents. Please let it be known that the residents of the Hawkinstown community do not want their community to be rezoned or annexed. We have reviewed similar cases in North Carolina and are quickly learning our rights to defend this plan. This plan is one-sided where we see benefits. We know that the benefits of the town of Spencer will result in approximately, well, I won't give a number, but the amount of the townhomes is about $38,500 according to your website, $38,500,000. So the town would benefit significantly with those taxes.
Ma'am, I hate to cut you off, but you have reached the end of your time. All right, here's the thing. If you're going to give her your time, I need to know who each of you are.
Leslie Parker. Vicky Gray. Carissa Wilkerson.
That should be enough.
All right, very
Thank
good.
you.
You have 9 minutes.
Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, there has to be a mutual benefit versus being forced to accept what is dictated in a state that operates under a democracy. To highlight the concerns, this project will increase traffic, require road expansion and signalization, increase pollution, potentially raise the crime rates of the area, decrease emergency response times for fire trucks, ambulances, and police. Let it also be made known that the concerns of the residents and the property owners of Hawkinstown community have not been satisfactorily addressed or resolved. I've met with between 25 and 30 community members and landowners over the past weekend, and all the points that I wish to make next are shared concerns overall. I would like to address the comments and staff responses of the August 23rd meeting of the town of Spencer. Number one, what date was the legislative hearing posted in the Salisbury Post? Number two, the Hawkinstown community at one time spanned from Old Moxville Road to 7th Street. Currently, the community considers Hawkinstown from St. Luke Baptist Church to 7th Street, including Hawkinstown Loop and other road intersecting roads. Number three, no response. Number four, the community residents would like to request a traffic study from the North Carolina Department of Transportation. The increase in traffic volume and the noise of the traffic are major concerns. To add turning lanes, signalization, and other traffic changes will disrupt the dynamic of the community. Number five, are there environmental concerns with Grants Creek currently? If so, why were those concerns not addressed prior to the desire to annex and develop the townhomes? Also, if so, will they be addressed even if the annexation is not approved? Number six, it is a major burden on the homeowners association to be responsible for maintenance of building exteriors and common spaces. Who will enforce the requirement of the townhomes homeowners association to keep that, to manage upkeep to prevent potential dilapidation? Number seven, no response. Number eight, the history of Hawkinstown needs to be reconsidered by the town of Spencer. Documentation can be provided to provide the historical significance. The community has initiated the process for Hawkinstown to be added to the study list for declaring it a historical community. Number nine, how is the annexation moving forward if the residents did not petition the town of Spencer for annexation? According to the residents, they have not had the opportunity to vote, and surely the sign-up sheets where you check yes or no, for or against, is not an attempt to justify a vote. Number 10, we will maintain documentation of the fact that you all assured, and I quote, sales histories of the townhomes should in no way affect the valuation of existing homes. Number 11, this is in the eye of the beholder, is what you stated in response to the comment that townhome development will be unsightly and visually unpleasant. Could you imagine living in a community where you see houses, trees, and landscapes, and then you have to see a development on a regular basis, endure the noise? Yes, it's in the eye of the beholder, but are you recognizing the beholders as the residents of the community? They've been trying to express to you how they feel about their community. There is the burden of the town to determine the benefits of existing residents, and this has not been done satisfactorily. Number 12, to say that the impact of buses and garbage trucks stopping and starting as their routes will be internal to the new development and will not affect Hawkinstown Road is a bit haughty, unless there's a contract in existence with Waste Management or the school system to say that they will not drive down Hawkinstown Road, especially if students are going to attend North Rand schools, as you mentioned, that North Rand needs students, and that would be a possibility for their attendance there, so you can't avoid the traffic. Number 13, growth is coming to Rowan County, and overall, the residents do not mind growth. However, in the Hawkinstown community, the residents would like for that growth to be the development of more single-family homes versus townhomes and apartments. It should be their right to decide. Number 14, I won't dispute your response that there is not an issue of race. However, I am comfortable with saying that it's about money. According to the project plans of the town of Spencer, the town of Spencer stands to benefit off of the $38,250,000 in property tax value as a result of this project. But please consider the cost of the residents. The residents will be losing a piece of their history that we, because I am a descendant of the Hawkins and Chun families, value. We're able to walk this land and sit outside in our peaceful community and actually see where we have come from, how we as a people and a community have grown and progressed over the span of 100+ years coming out of slavery. Number 15, yes, there is a lack of understanding of the principle of extraterritorial jurisdiction. However, we read up on it and consulted with an attorney. Can we please get a copy of the postcard that was sent in early 2023? All of the residents of Hawkinstown that I spoke with said they didn't receive the postcard. Based on the description of the postcard, it did not seem, and this is an assumption, to satisfy the North Carolina general statute that says that notice shall inform the landowner of the effect of the extension of extraterritorial jurisdiction. Nonetheless, the town of Spencer's use of East TJ still includes annexation. Oh, I was looking for the time, sorry. Where it states, Hawkinstown Road area north of Hawkinstown Road, east and south of 7th Street and west of Salisbury ETJ border, includes a mixture of small and medium-sized parcels with limited residential development. If combined and redivided and provided with municipal water and sewer, this could be prime area for high-density residential development and annexation. The plan also said that this area has developed over time, partially through land division and inheritance into small lots, some served by a system of roads with several interior lots having no road frontage. Property owners in this area should be encouraged to recombine and then subdivide property, creating larger lots more suitable for high-density subdivision. The town could provide logistical support and then rezone the property as needed to the benefit of the current property owners and the town's future. In return for attaching to town water and sewer, this property would be annexed into the town's municipal limits. And this leads us back to the point of annexation initiated by a municipality. However, I've read since I wrote this that the annexation was initiated by the zoning request was initiated by the current owners of the specific parcels. However, I still would like to raise the point that without the agreement and the signed petitions of the residents in the general area, that it cannot move forward. We, the residents of the Hawkinstown community, past and present, ask that you vote no in regard to changing the zoning tonight and to drop the plans of developing townhomes or apartment complexes in the middle of this historic community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Vincent Moore. All right, next is Mr. Mike Vinson.
Good evening. My name is Mike Benson,
Good evening.
and I was going to yield my minutes to Dr. Tion Moore.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, next is Angela Mahisson. Okay, thank you. All right, next is Ethel Madison. Okay. Clarissa Wilkerson has yielded her time, as has Leslie Parker. Paulette Tabor Brown.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Paulette Tabor Brown, and I am a product of Hawkinstown community. I grew up there. I was raised. My parents bought there because this was a close-knit neighborhood. People loved each other. We knew everybody that lived there at one point. It has just been not heartwarming to me that, that I feel like I'm not safe if you mess with our community. I moved here after 30 years of being in Durham and crime was rampant. I feel safe in Hawkinstown. I don't feel like I'm gonna feel that way anymore with 140 some units in my neighborhood. The traffic is just going to probably drive me crazy. I just don't know what else to say other than, I hope that you'll listen to what we have to say and that you take to heart how we feel as residents of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is Karen Lightfoot.
Really have much to say now that Doc has spoken. Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for hearing me again. I just wanted to come and express some of the similar concerns that I had last week, which Dr. Tiana also expressed, is the traffic. And I'm just really concerned about, I just took Hawkinstown Road on the way over here, and, you see all of the mud in the street from the current development that's going on. And, is our infrastructure in place to have these developments in terms of traffic and response times to police? The other thing I would like to take into consideration is it's really easy for people in our society to look at elders. A lot of people here are older community members. Oh, they're not going to be here that much longer. I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm not saying you're thinking it. But sometimes it feels that the elders in our communities are not protected. So I just ask you to consider the fact that bringing in school buses, bringing in additional traffic, and the safety that people feel currently, they may not feel the same safety. I just want to say that I'm speaking on behalf of my grandparents who have land in Hawkinstown that they've willed to us, and land at 7th Street and on Hawkinstown Road. And I know how hard they worked that land. I know how proud they are of what that community became and the fact that they helped to establish the church that's there. And I know that they are mentioned in that document, the book that the doctor was talking about, Hawkinstown is mentioned in. And so there is a legacy here that should be remembered and that should be considered in the makeup of what you do going forward. We're not saying don't do anything, leave it exactly as it is. It's beautiful. The land out there is just refreshing when you go to Hawkinstown. And we say go to Hawkinstown because it's a place for us. It's not just a street that you cut through and go from Salisbury to Spencer. It's a place. And so I just want to encourage you all to think of those who are here, those who have been landowners, who've paid taxes on this land for such a long period of time. Really think about their inputting in townhomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Miss Vicki Gray has yielded her time. And next is Melba Allen.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melba Allen. I reside on 108 Hollins Drive, which is on the 7th Street end of Hawkinstown. As several people have said, I am deeply concerned about traffic. When I get to the end of my road and I have to turn left and pull out as people come over the hill from 7th Street, I literally will make sure that the other lane is empty just in case I have to get over because someone's blowing me down because they've come over the hill too quickly. I do hope that there is something that can be done so that we don't have an additional 400 plus cars up and down Hawkinstown Road. Safety on that road is a major issue for me. The other thing is, it concerns me as to whether or not any one of you that is part of this has looked at how Grants Creek overflows at the end of some of the roads that dead end in Hawkinstown. When the reserve was built, that area was a flood zone. We are now getting more water from somewhere. Now they're building another development across from the church. You're going to have runoff from that. At the end of my road, it's like a dead end, but the water comes up to the end of that road. The person that is living at the very end of that road on the left side for years, the water never came up to their basement door, but now it's there. It's unreal to me that now you all are deciding to bring in more houses that are going to bring on more runoff water that will cause more flooding. Those of you that live in Spencer know that the field, as you cross the bridge there in Spencer at Grants Creek, it floods all the time. On the left and on the right, it floods. So I'm concerned as far as what are you going to do about flooding if this were to go through? Because there is going to be more flooding. I'm concerned also, as other folks have said, it's a community. We're used to sitting outside and hearing the birds and the frogs and the crickets and all. When you bring in more townhouses and all, you take away a lot of the nature aspect of what we enjoy on a day-to-day basis. So I do hope that you will not be building any types of townhouses, but family homes. And as they say, what would be in it for us if this were to go through? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next is Beverly Hawkins.
Initially, I wanted to relinquish my time to Dr. Moore, but she cut it off before people and stuff for me to come up again with what they want to do and speak. Anyway, there's just a couple things I wanted to talk about that I don't think was sufficiently addressed in any of the prior meetings. I have pulled down the zoning application that the developers are supposed to submit. And one of the issues that did not adhere to the procedure was it is the responsibility of the petitioner to draft a notification letter using this template as a basis and mail it to adjacent property owners and owners of nearby properties in the neighborhood at least 10 days prior to the scheduled neighborhood meeting. That did not occur. There are people who did not receive the notice at all, whose property is bordering the parcel to be rezoned, or they got it a couple days in advance of the meeting. So that's one point that I want to make that was never addressed. The other thing on the application is indicated future land use plan analysis and the benefits and detriments to the landowners, the neighbors, and the surrounding community, and why the action taken is in the public interest. And further down it says, provide brief statements explaining how the rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest. And in the meeting on the 23rd, the zoning administrator and developer, they only spoke in terms of how it would benefit Spencer at large and not the Hawkinstown community. So since y'all have received this, I'm interested how they filled in this question because it was not sufficiently answered at those previous meetings. And one thing, I hesitate to bring it up, but there are under investigation who have the legal rights to that property because it was air-to-air property. And so forth, letters were sent, one of my father, by an attorney representing one of the heirs, who I guess was self-appointed as the executor of the will, sending letters to all the heirs, asking them to relinquish their claims to that property in exchange for $412, and many of them did not sign off, as a lot of them are dead now. So that is under investigation as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Carl Martin, you had yielded your time, correct? But you had indicated that you were yielding your time to her. But if you, based on the number of others that yielded, if you still want to speak, you may.
Who was the last lady that spoke?
Carl Martin. And what I've got to say is short and sweet. Your jobs are to make sure that we in the community are safe. And with that much traffic in the general coming through that area will not keep us safe. Another thing that concerns me was no one has offered anything from Spencer as far as garbage pickup or fire department or any of these different uses until all of a sudden now you've got 142 units coming in, and you want now to annex and rezone to bring your fire department, your police department, your garbage pickup and everything to the area. We didn't ask for it, and we've been for years paying independent carrier to come out and pick up garbage and everything else. I don't want you to do this and think about it as primarily money. You're offsetting a community, and we've been doing fine in that community for years, and we'll keep doing fine if we don't have a whole lot more traffic, a lot more crime, and we just want you to keep us safe by not rezoning.
All right, thank you, sir. Next is Stephanie Dummett.
Okay, I'm Stephanie Dummett, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my parents, Arthur and Jean Miller and Aretha Miller. As concerned residents of the Hawkinstown community, we are deeply troubled by the proposed construction of townhouses in our beloved community. Our families have safety concerns, zoning concerns, and traffic concerns that we believe will be increased if the development is allowed to proceed. Growing up in the Hawkinstown community has been a privilege for many of us. We have cherished the peaceful atmosphere and the close-knit community that defines our town. However, the introduction of townhouses threatens to disrupt this delicate balance and compromise the very essence of what makes the Hawkinstown community special. Firstly, safety is a paramount concern for all of us. The addition of more housing units without proper infrastructure planning could strain emergency services such as fire departments and police stations. This could potentially lead to longer response time during critical situations where every second counts. Moreover, we worry about how these townhouses will impact our already congested roads and limited parking spaces, because sometimes people are trying to park on Hawkinstown Road, which is not a good thing to do because it's so not wide enough. Increased traffic from additional residents will undoubtedly create more congestion on our streets. This not only affects our daily commute, but also poses risks to pedestrians and cyclists who rely on this safe pathway. So I've seen, and I don't know if anybody else has seen, where we have different people riding bikes up and down Hawkinstown Road at this point, and people are walking that road, and it's not a wide road. Furthermore, there is a valid zoning concern associated with the proposed development project. Our current zoning regulations were put in place for a reason: to maintain the character and integrity of our neighborhoods while ensuring appropriate land use patterns. Introducing high-density housing like townhouses may not align with these established guidelines and could set an alarming precedent for future development that disregard existing regulations. We urge city officials to consider alternate solutions that prioritize substantial growth while preserving the unique charm of the Hawkinstown community. By focusing on revitalizing existing
infrastructures or exploring other suitable locations for new housing developments within the designated zone. We can strike a better balance of progress and preservation. It is
Thank you.
important.
I'm sorry to cut you
Oh,
off, but that's the end of your
okay.
time. Thank you. All right, next is Robert Cockrell Jr.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Cockrell Jr. And my wife and I, Yvonne, we live at 502 Hawkinstown Road. And we've been living in Hawkinstown since 1972, so we've been there for a long time. We have been very well pleased with the community. As has been stated, we thoroughly object to the rezoning, especially getting away from single house development. I live in the, Salisbury Extraterritorial District at 502 Hawkinstown Road. We are directly across from the new development, and we are seeing the problems that are developing. And if you drive by my house, you can see what has been done to my yard now. It is completely in disarray. Trucks bringing materials out to the site back up. They have nowhere to turn around. They back up into my yard, and it is completely in disarray. And if you go by and take a look at it yourself. This development has brought about some changes. We had to go through a situation where they put in a water line, so that changed, that created problems to my property. They put in new water lines. When they put back the lines, they changed the property altogether. It's totally different. And now we have to go through the problem of getting the damage that has been caused to the property, which is presently there now. We have to get somebody to come in, a landscaper to come in to do work that we had no control over. And this is going to be some of the problems that's going to be caused with this development. There's going to be, as been well stated, traffic and all of the other problems that have been put forth. So we would like to encourage you, as you make your decision, to think about the people in Hawkinstown, people who have lived there all their lives, people who have been a part of that community. My wife is originally from that area, and as I said, we moved there in '72, and that's been just about 50 years or more. But please consider all of the things that have been said when you make your decision. We know that we can't stop progress, but we hope to control the type of development that goes into that area.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next is, I believe it's Aretha Miller. Having trouble reading it.
Okay, my name is Aretha Miller, and I did grow up off of 112 Hollands Drive with Jean Arthur Miller and Stephanie Dummett. That has always been our home, but my concern is they were saying with the older generations that's coming now, we don't want the crime. I work within the criminal justice system myself, and I feel with the new development, that may be reason for them to try to come in, and it may be a reason for crime. And I know on our street, they have already widened it, and there are always terrible wrecks out there all of the time. It was smaller than it is now, that we used to be careful trying to drive, but they tried to widen it. It still hasn't made any difference. There's still, people are up and down, and we're still having wrecks. So like I said, it is hard to see when you're coming off of Hollands Drive to make sure that you're not getting hit and people are blowing on you. It's a whole lot of traffic out there. And with this new development and with this new infrastructure you all are wanting to do, I feel that it's just not going to be good for our area. I feel that there are other areas that you maybe, I know you're probably trying to do some housing, but I don't think that Hopkinstown is the area for this new housing development that you are wanting to do. I'm like everyone else. It's good to make progress, and I know you do, and we want everybody to have a place to stay, but it needs to be something affordable and in an area where, in a different area. That's what I need to say, in a different area. That's all I have to say. I'm against it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Dean Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jean Miller. I live at 112 Hollins Drive, right off of Hawkinstown Road. I agree with everything that has been brought to you all's attention. I am one of the older members of the community, and I want to continue to feel safe and not have all of the traffic. Like one of the ladies said, when we come out of Hollins Drive, it's a little hill coming off of 7th Street, and you can't see over it until you're out in the street a lot. And cars come really fast through there. And if you have to make sure you have plenty of space to get out and go where you're going. But we don't have crime. I don't want crime. I'm too old to have to run from people. I don't want crime, and I don't want anything that is going to interrupt the community. I have been in that community all my life. Even before we moved to Hollins Drive, I live right up the street from there. And it's always been a nice, quiet neighborhood. And I'd love to keep it that way and not have to worry about crime. I don't know what the crime may be once it's rezoned, but you can see already the world has changed. And I would like to continue to feel safe at my home and not have to worry about someone coming in on my husband and me. So if you all would, I'm not going to beg you, I'm just stating the facts. I've heard people say, I'm begging you not to do this, but I want you to take it into consideration. There are other older people in the community, some older than me, but like my granddaughter say, I'm old as dirt, so I don't need to worry about nobody else except take care of my husband and me. And we want to continue to live in a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, sorry for mispronunciations of names. It's trying to read different handwriting, so sorry about that, Miss Miller. Arthur Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I wasn't expecting to speak this evening, but I'll tell you, I'm one of the guys, younger guys, that for years and years, the older men in the community got their property, they aired down to the children, and children's children, stuff like that. And I've been out there since '71. I've run into several problems with water, and stuff like that, but I couldn't get no help from you all because I came over with the older men. I might not be the same committee, but when they were over in the other building, I was one of the youngest guys that they had involved in it. And I found out that we wasn't considered a part of Spencer. We wasn't considered a part of Salisbury because I went to both places. And finally, I went to one of my insurance agents, Greg Edge, I think his name is. And I asked him to check into it for me because he's on the board in Salisbury. And he gave me some numbers to call, and I got the same answer. Salisbury is not responsible. Spencer said they're not responsible. Holland Drive is right there in the middle. All around me, the street I live on, the state paved roads. Hogstown Avenue was paved. I'm not talking against my people because I've been with them a long time. And Melba can tell you that we had 15 people on one well. We were trying to supply that community. But it didn't work out like that. Every time something come up, since I was halfway in charge of the thing, because the older men had passed away, and some just couldn't handle it no more. And my next door neighbor, Mr. Table, he's dead, but he asked me, would I help keep the community going? And I've been doing all I can to help. And what I don't know is when we tried to get water, sewer, gas, all that stuff out there, nobody would help. Then now all of a sudden we got all kind of houses, stuff out there that shouldn't be there.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your comments and input this evening. We do appreciate it. So that does conclude our public comment segment of tonight's agenda. And the next item on the agenda is to move forward with our consent agenda items. Board, you will see there are multiple items on there this evening that we discussed at last Thursday's meeting. Is there a need to pull any of those consent agenda items off the agenda for further discussion tonight? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Second. There's a motion by Ms. Sledge, a second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right. All opposed? And the consent agenda is approved unanimously. And so with that, we will move to item 7, which is the consideration of the Hawkinstown Road rezoning for Hawkins Meadow development. And I will ask Mr. Blunt to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, and citizens for coming out tonight to offer their opinion on this issue. Mr. Jones, the developer, is here tonight and will speak to you shortly. You may want to limit me to 3 minutes because my explanation of some of this may stretch on a little while. If you get tired of listening to me, just tell me and I'll shut up. A few things, and I'm not here to debate issues with the public comments. I'm not here to sell you on this project. I'm here to try to give you the facts as I know them, as I understand them. A couple of things that were said tonight that I just wanted to clarify with you. We're not here talking about an annexation. We're here talking about a rezoning. The annexation process will start sometime in the future. It will require another public hearing where all these folks can come back out and talk to you about it. The annexation process is totally different than the rezoning. Totally different set of issues that we look at. And only the 3 parcels that Mr. Jones owns will be considered for annexation. So there's no other property in the Hawkinstown area that will be considered for annexation. And the only way we could consider it is if a property owner asked us to annex it. It has to be voluntary. There was also a comment made about the ETJ expansion. There is no ETJ expansion involved in this. That has not been considered, not been discussed. The ETJs were set back in the 70s by the state legislature. That line was drawn back then, and we're not in any way trying to impact that at this time. At your last meeting, Alderman Howell asked for me to explain the process, to answer some of the process questions, instead of looking at just the details of this project, to look at the broader view of this whole development process. And that's what I've tried to do. Hopefully you can see that better than I can. So the overall overarching process starts by creating a comprehensive land use plan, which y'all did, this board did years ago. Last year, you went through the process of revising and readopting that comprehensive land use plan. Along with that plan, you come up with a land use map. It's called a future land use map that's in the plan itself, and then that is transitioned into a zoning map. And then beyond that, a development ordinance is created, which basically is the nuts and bolts of how an individual project has to be developed. Within that revised comprehensive plan, and you've heard some of this quoted already tonight, but in Section 5 amendments to strategic corridors and areas, it says that for the Hawkinstown Road area, that if combined and redivided and provided with municipal water and sewer, this could be a prime area for higher density residential development and annexation. It goes on to say this area has developed over time partially through land division as inheritance into a mix of small lots, some served by a system of roads with several interior lots having no road frontage. Property owners in this area should be encouraged to recombine and then subdivide property, creating larger lots more suitable for high density subdivision. We went on to revise the future land use map. This is the Hawkinstown Road area and 7th Street area. And it says to rezone to encourage higher density residential construction and encourage recombination and then efficient subdivision to create large parcels for residential development. That's exactly what we're working on right now. This is the plan that y'all adopted last year. To get more into the details of how you go from a 22-acre cornfield into a 142-unit subdivision, these are the things that Spencer does. We handle rezoning, which is what's before you now, a rezoning of this property from AG to RMSP. We also do a site plan review, a very detailed process that's handled by staff and outside resources. We also handle the annexation as a totally separate process. And as was stated, we have to meet some criteria. Do the cost outweigh the benefits? If they do, we would recommend not annexing. And the other way around, if the revenues outstrip the cost, then we would recommend annexation. And then, of course, when we get down to the actual building, we issue zoning permits. This isn't all of the process, though. There are other agencies that are looking at a variety of other things. Erosion control is handled by Rowan County. Stormwater management starts with Rowan County and goes to the state for final review. Floodplain management starts with Rowan County. Building permits are issued by Rowan County. Driveway permits in this case are issued by the Department of Transportation after their review. They have their own process. They handle it completely outside of what Spencer does. What we're looking at tonight, rezoning. And in general, what we look at when we look at a rezoning issue is the question of uses. What's allowed and how does it fit into the current development pattern? And then the current development pattern is obviously residential. That's what's there now, but it's trending towards higher density development, and I'll have a few more slides on that later. And again, the proposed rezoning is from AG, which does allow residential on large lots, but it also allows many other uses. They're asking for it to be rezoned to RMST, which allows higher density residential, but does away with all those other uses. When we look at one of these projects, what we look at is the table of uses in your development ordinance. And there it is. And there it is. And there it is. The yellow line on the left is AG. The blue line a few blocks over is RMST. And I'll keep flipping through it. That red arrow points to the one that says townhomes. And as you can see, townhomes are not allowed in AG, but they are allowed in RMST and 5 other zoning classifications. To keep you from having to try to read all that, I made this list. These are things that are currently allowed in the AG zoning classification that this property is zoned as right now. You could have a beer, wine, or distilled beverage wholesaler build a building out there. You could have a dairy farm and production facility built there. A leather products production, animal feed production, campground, cemetery, daycare center, a junk motor vehicle storage, dog kennel. We could move town hall out there. Government offices are allowed out there. These are the uses that are allowed in the current zoning classification, but would not be allowed in the new zoning classification. There's a list of things that are allowed in RMST, but not allowed in AG, basically townhomes. This is the dimensional table that goes along with the table of uses. And I just gave this to you for demonstration purposes. The one that's highlighted in yellow is SFR 3. It tells you how big the lots have to be, what the road frontage has to be, the width of the lot, the setbacks. Over to the right is the table for RMST, and it is a small lot, single family residential. That 5,000 square foot lot size is for single family. But down below that, and I highlighted in blue, it does allow townhomes, and some of the dimensions change when you go to townhomes. So that's the dimensional table we will spend time looking at. The rezoning process itself starts with the applicant coming in and talking to planning staff, primarily me, to tell me what they're trying to do. And the first thing we do is open up that table of uses to see, can you do it the way it's currently zoned? If the answer is no, we explain the rezoning process to them, and they fill out the application and submit the fee for the rezoning, and then we start the process. The planning board is required to review any rezoning application, and they got the same presentation that I made to you at your last meeting, same presentation that I made to the neighborhood meeting, basically showing where the property is, what the surrounding uses are, etc. We saw that last week. The planning board then makes a recommendation. They vote as a body. This is required by state statute. And the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning. Let me enforce that, emphasize that. That's what you're here to talk about tonight, is the rezoning. Not the site plan, not the annexation, not water and sewer, the rezoning. That's the issue before you. Our development ordinance requires a neighborhood meeting, and notices were mailed out by first class mail to all the contiguous property owners, and a lot of those property owners live out of state, the owners of record that live out of state. But they were mailed notices. We also posted a sign at the entrance to the property, and we also advertised it in the paper twice, and I can get those dates at some time to answer that question. We had a good turnout at the neighborhood meeting. We had over 30 people here. Many of these folks that you see tonight were there, and they certainly expressed very articulately their concerns and their opposition to this project. Statute also requires a public hearing. That's what you had last week. Again, that public hearing was advertised in the newspaper. Letters were sent out to contiguous property owners to let them know that you were having a public hearing to consider the rezoning of this property. And then, of course, tonight we're to the point where you are here to make your decision. after your discussion and this presentation, you will get the chance to decide whether this should be rezoned or not. You remember that chart that had all the various steps we took. Totally independent of rezoning is a site plan review. And it goes through a number of steps with a number of people involved. This is a staff-driven process. Y'all don't get to vote on the site plan. You've already voted on it because you adopted the development ordinance. And every decision we make as far as the site plan is by looking at the development ordinance. If it requires a 100-foot wide lot and they only have 99 feet, we say no. If they have 100 feet or more, we say yes. So we make our decisions based on your decisions. It also goes out to a technical review committee, and you see the folks there that are involved in that technical review committee. Those are the heads of all of our departments, plus the county fire marshal, NCDOT, Salisbury Rowan Utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Those people get to see that site plan in its earliest stages so they can express their concerns over the overall development without any details fleshed out. This site plan has gone through 11 iterations. We're on the 11th now. We've been working on the site plan review for almost a year now, trying to get it right. The steps, again, the sketch plan review, we're to the preliminary site plan review now. The next step is even more complicated and more detailed than anything else I've mentioned so far. This is when that preliminary site plan gets handed to a group of professional engineers who then do a full set of construction drawings showing every facet of this development, all the details, curb heights, road widths, turn radiuses, landscaping requirements, stormwater management systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those plans come back through this office, my office, for review, and anything that we need to have other departments look at, like the spacing of the fire hydrants, goes to our chief, our fire chief. The location of the mail kiosk goes to the local mailman. What you call the guy there. All these postmaster. Our local postmaster gets to weigh in on that. So all those outside organizations review the engineering drawings, the construction drawings, whatever you want to call them. At that point, any concerns, any questions, any problems with meeting state law, local ordinances are flagged. All that's sent back through to the developer. They have to fix it. They have to get everything just right until we finally approve it. And that's not even the end of the process. That's barely the beginning of the process. The site plans basically say these are the improvements you have to do for this development. You have to build these roads to a certain specification. You have to have a stormwater management system based on the drawings you've submitted. All that stuff has to get done before they can build the first house out there, the first townhouse. And we've set up a process that allows them to get some of the construction started ahead of time, but they actually have to post a bond for the value plus 25% of what we call improvements, roads, fire hydrants, water, sewer, all that. Until they get that done and then post a bond, we don't issue the first zoning permit that allows them to build a building. So as you can imagine, this is a long process to get through to that point. At that point, they hadn't even put a shovel in the ground. And they probably already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting to that point. Again, as I showed you in that other chart, there are other permitting processes going on at the same time this is going on. NCDOT determines whether they can get driveway permits. And if they do get them, do they have to put in turn lanes, deceleration lanes, in some situations, signalization. Salisbury Rowan Utilities. Again, I sent them the preliminary site plan, so they're aware of the project. I'm sure that the developer has talked to Salisbury Rowan Utilities, but at this stage, Salisbury Rowan Utilities has to approve a water extension plan, a very detailed extension plan. and they start putting price tags on all those things, which will be very, very expensive. Wayne County requires an erosion control system on any development over 1 acre. So they have to actually submit a plan for erosion control. They're not building in the floodplain, so that's not a question here, but normally they would have to submit a floodplain plan, get a permit, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to bore you to death with all the details, but blame it on Andrew Howe. He asked this question. On a totally separate path is annexation. And again, annexation is a matter of a private property owner wanting to become a part of the town of Spencer. They want Spencer services. They want fire protection, police protection, garbage collection, and in most cases, road repairs. It has to be by their request. We can't annex anything without their request. So in this case, all we're looking to annex at some point in the future will be these 3 lots that are defined for this particular project. When we do that, they submit a petition. The petition goes to the clerk. The clerk issues a certificate of sufficiency, fancy word for her checking out the signatures on the paper versus who the owner of record of the property is, making sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. You have a public hearing, and everybody in the whole town gets to weigh in on that one. Because as was pointed out, there are some costs attached. You've done a few annexations for industrial buildings, and the cost for them being annexed is very low. For a residential subdivision, it's higher, primarily because of garbage collection. If it were a large enough facility and far enough away, you might ask, well, do we need to build a satellite fire station up there? And if we decided you did, we would factor that into the cost versus what the new tax revenue and sales tax revenue would be. And we would report that to you. Nothing's hidden on this. So you would know going into that annexation process what the costs and the benefits and the recommendation of staff based on that cost-benefit analysis would be as far as annexation. Once you approve an annexation, we have to negotiate with the local volunteer fire department that was handling that property ahead of time. Again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds with you on that, but it requires us to pay them a certain amount of money each year to offset the cost of what they've invested in their fire department to cover that property that we'll be covering now. And this is a cornfield, so they hadn't invested a whole lot to protect that cornfield. It's a non-industrial area, so they hadn't bought a ladder truck that they needed to use to protect big buildings. So again, that process we will add into the cost factor. How much does it cost us in that negotiation? And then finally, there's a long list of notices that we have to do once a property is annexed. From the postmaster to the Board of Elections to the Attorney General's office. During this meeting, and certainly at the neighborhood meeting, we had a lot of concerns and questions expressed by the citizens. Again, it's not my place to argue with the citizens. It's not my place to try to sell you one way or the other on what's right or wrong. It is my place as your town planner to make sure that you have, to the best of my knowledge, the facts of each of these issues before you make your decision. So that's what I've tried to do here. Bear with me. You've heard tonight and heard before that they're concerned about the traffic increases on Hawkinstown Road, and have stated that Hawkinstown Road can't handle that traffic. So I looked up the latest traffic counts that I could find on NCDOT's website. On the west end of Hawkinstown Road, they listed it as 18 AADT, which is annual or average annual daily traffic volume. That many cars pass that measuring place during that average day. Hawkinstown Road on the east end is a little bit lower, 1,300 traffic movements. For comparison, Old Knoxville Road, where this intersects, has 5,000 AADT. So a very much higher number on Old Moxville Road than on Hawkinstown Road. Longs Ferry Road, which you're all familiar with, which we just finished a traffic study on, has a 4,400 AADT. Longs Ferry Road is a great example because it's exactly the same width road. It has exactly the same right-of-way, which is a 60-foot right-of-way. It has exactly the same development patterns that Hawkinstown Road has, strip development. There's a little more commercial on Longs Ferry than there is on Hawkinstown, but basically residential strip development. I can't tell you whether this will pass muster with NCDOT. Their study is much more detailed than this thumbnail sketch. But I think I can tell you from looking at this that in all likelihood a driveway permit will be issued. I can't tell you what restrictions they will add to it as far as turn lanes or deceleration lanes. That's up to NCDOT. From experience, I will tell you that a residential development is different than a factory as far as the impacts on traffic. A factory opens at a certain time of the day and all people arrive at that time. At the end of the day, all those people leave. And therefore the local roads get this jolt of traffic in the morning and the afternoons. A residential subdivision follows that a little bit, but it trickles more. People leave at various times in the morning, come back at various times in the evening. One thing that NCDOT looks at road systems differently than we would think about. I gave you all the numbers of how many cars pass up and down the road every day. What they focus on is intersections. How long do you have to sit at an intersection before they think there's a problem with that road? So they will be more concerned with the intersection of Hawkinstown with 7th and Old Moxville Road and what the wait time is. And once they calculate how many cars are going to be out there and what the wait time is, then they start talking about signalization of those intersections to manage traffic. That's well beyond the scope of this project, but that's how the process works. You want a process, so you get in process. The residents said that they should have been consulted earlier about what they wanted this property used for. And again, I'll go back to the fact that a comprehensive plan review was done primarily by the planning board and you, but public hearings were held and announced in the paper that you were considering making amendments to the comprehensive plan. The town's development ordinance specifies hearings and who's to be notified and timing of postings and things of that nature, and all that was followed in this case. And then you have to weigh the private property owner's rights to do with his property what he would like to do with any concerns that have been raised with you during the public hearings or by staff during our presentation. And if we had found things that we thought were of concern, we would have pointed them out to you. Quite honestly, that's why we've gone through 11 iterations of their site plan. It's because I feel it's my obligation to you to do away with all those concerns before it gets to you. And Mr. Jones and his partners have been very willing to work with the town to improve their site plan 11 different times. So I applaud them for that. There are concerns that townhomes would soon become rental units, and rental units would lead to higher crime and social problems. It's an interesting question. I did a review of the 76 homes in the Hawkinstown area. 34%, in my opinion, are probably rental properties. I checked census data to see that Spencer's rental occupancy was 45%. Salisbury's is 50%, Granite Quarry is 41%. It dawned on me yesterday that really we needed to compare a similar development to see what their rental rates were, to see if that assumption that townhomes were going to turn into rental units was a good assumption. So yesterday I went through and looked at all the tax data on Wiltshire Village over in Salisbury. 99 units. I used to live at 111 Wiltshire Village when I got out of college, so I'm really familiar with that development. Surprisingly, 41%. They're less than the Spencer and same as Granite Quarry, quite a bit less than Salisbury's rental rate. So the assumption that this is going to turn into a 100% rental apartment type complex is just not founded. It will have some rental units. I'm not telling you that it's not going to. And by state statute, I can't tell you you can't rent your house, so I can't tell them they can't rent their townhomes. There will be restrictions in the homeowners association as to the rental process, so that there will be controls on that. I went on to the second part of this question, which is crime, and tried to figure out, I did some research trying to find crime rates. I couldn't find anything that said townhomes, condominiums, apartments have higher crime rates per se than single-family developments. So I couldn't find anything that proves that. You would assume that just by intuition that there is higher crime there. But I did a little research on it. Spencer's crime rate by one rating at cityrating.com stands at 38.35 crimes per 1,000 people. So if you add, I came up with 383 people, that's 2.7 people per unit times 142 units, then you're essentially going to say that you're going to have 15 more crimes in the Hawkinstown Road area in a given year. But you have to stop at that point and think that instead of having 76 homes to spread that crime around, you now have 76 plus 142. So the chance of any particular home having a crime committed still stands at the 38.35 per 1,000. Intuition tells you there's going to be more crime because there are more people. Yes, there will be more numbers of crimes than there were before. But the chance of an individual house having a crime committed against them stays the same. It doesn't change because this is an apartment complex. It doesn't change because it's a townhome development. Property tax increases. We just went through a revaluation, so really we should all be pretty familiar with this. The county handles revaluation. Their process is set by state statute. And that state statute boils down to they compare your home to similar homes in your similar geographic area. And then if similar homes have been sold at a higher price in the past 4 years, then it's likely they're going to up your property value. That's a simple way of looking at revaluation. And of course, you in your wisdom lowered the tax rate to offset some of that. But these are townhomes, and the comparables will be other townhomes, not single-family homes, not the homes that are out there now. And conversely, the single-family homes that are out there now won't be compared with the townhomes. Just because the townhome sells for $250,000, for example, will have little or no bearing on what a single-family home in that area is going to sell for. So it should have little to no effect on the local property tax rate, property tax valuation. I will say, though, probably raw land in that area will continue to escalate in value in the coming years. And that's because raw land is in great demand, and properties like this one, this 22 acres, will go on the record as being sold at a certain price. So the next time a reevaluation comes around, they'll look at those numbers. Raw land prices may go up, valuations may go up. There was some concern about the townhomes will be unsightly and visually unpleasant. That's a nice way of saying they're ugly. These are some of the homes in Hawkinstown area, and they are very nice homes, very attractive homes. I checked the tax value. I went through 76 homes and checked the tax value. The average comes out to $145,000 per home. There's some much higher value than that, some lower than that, obviously, to come out with an average of $145,000. I was quoted earlier by saying it's in the eye of the beholder, and I think it is. The marketplace is demanding this type of home, townhomes. And these townhomes, as I understand it, will be priced in the $225,000 to $250,000 range. The two pictures on the right were actually sent to me by the developer today, showing actually what they plan to build at this point. The one on the left I included because it's color rendering, gives you a little better visual of it, same type of layout, but also shows you what the benefit of landscaping is. And we are requiring extensive landscaping on this property. Some other questions. Other homes and properties will be annexed if this property is. I just explained that. No, nothing else is going to be annexed unless somebody comes to us and says we want to be annexed. And there's no reason for them to do that. Existing property owners will be forced to connect to municipal water and sewer if it's extended to this property. Not true. A water main will be run up Hawkinstown Road to this property. It does make it available for other developers. And if individuals are having trouble with their wells, they might be able to tap onto it and replace their wells. But nobody's going to be forced to hook onto it. You heard tonight and before that there's more flooding and pollution will be caused by the new development. And I think I explained to you Thursday night that they are required to have a stormwater management system. And part of that system is they call them BMPs for some strange reason, best management practices. We call them settling ponds or detention ponds. And what that pond does is catches the water that runs off this property through the stormwater. Is that my time? That water runs to that pond. The pond fills up. It tapers out very, very slowly. Fills fast, but flows out slowly. While it's sitting in the pond, the sediment falls out, the chemicals fall out, the pollution falls out. So that the water that slowly flows into Grants Creek will be cleaner than it is now. And it will flow in slower than it flows in now. Right now it's an agricultural field, and if you do any studying on pollution, the non-point source polluter number one is agricultural fields. That's where most of the pollution comes from. And the large number of homes will bring too many students to our school system. You heard some comments on that earlier. Yes, there will be some buses that come down Hawkinstown Road going to this project. There are already some buses that come down Hawkinstown Road to pick up other children, but I can't say there won't be an increase. But the ones that go into the development, the stopping and starting and stopping and starting of picking up students, the impact will be inside the development, not out on Hawkinstown Road. The impact on the school system is coming one way or the other. Mr. Jones, I believe, is on the school board, so he could address this, but the growth in student population is coming. Right now, the North Lorenz school system is the least overcrowded, the most underutilized of the schools in our whole county system. So the influx of new students will be a blessing to them. And whether it's built here or not, the school system will be required to meet those needs wherever it happens in the county. It's a county-wide system. So if the impact is not here, it will be somewhere else. So the change in the impact is negligible. The last one I have trouble answering. Save the historic character of Hawkinstown area. And I appreciate the doctor's comments on the history of it. I wasn't able to find that. I appreciate you bringing that up. It's interesting history. So while I've got some thoughts on it, the answer to that one, you heard a few people say it tonight, growth and change are inevitable. And to enforce that thought, here's Salisbury, 1770. It was a crossroads of what is now Main Street and Ennis Street, a few parcels of land. Salisbury now covers 22 square miles or 14,000 acres. Growth and change are inevitable. Spencer, you've all heard the story of Robert Partee selling 100 acres back in 1896 to Mr. Henderson, who then turned around and sold it to Southern Railway, probably at a profit, to develop our town of Spencer. And there's also a quote in our historic preservation book that talks about the Register of Deeds having, in 1897, that language you see about defining where the Spencer area was. So in 1896, it was 100 acres. By 1897, it was about 400 acres. And currently, we're up to about 2,000 acres. Growth and change are inevitable. This was on a personal note. When I was a young man in grammar school, I grew up in Union Park. In that little blue dot at 715 Maple Avenue, I grew up in a little duplex in the shadow of what was then Wynn High School, now Salisbury High School. And my friend Kyle Harris back here is responsible for that bulldozer, because now they're tearing down some of the old apartments and building new affordable housing in that area. It's a good thing. And if they have to tear down my apartment that I lived in for so many years, growth and change are inevitable. There are natural development patterns that all land follows in growing areas. It starts as that natural undeveloped land. It gets cleared for agricultural fields, or in some places, industrial sites. And then you see strip development, and there's nothing, I don't mean that as a derogatory term. In most cases, the farmers of that agricultural land needed money to pay the property tax. So they would sell off a few pieces of frontage every year to pay the property taxes. And houses got built on those roads out in the county. The final development stage of property is high density residential. And that's what we're looking at tonight. To give you a real life example, there's some historic photographs of the west end of Hawkinstown Road, where it intersects with Old Moxville Road. 1956, it was just all cleared agricultural land. Mr. Hawkins probably farmed that land and other people. By 1983, it's a little hard to see at that scale, but there was strip development beginning on Hawkinstown Road. Houses were being built in 83 and a little bit before. In 95, in that picture you see a subdivision north of Hawkinstown being pretty well started, and one to the south just beginning. 98, the one to the north had added a high density residential area up on the front and continued to develop. The one in the south was still under development. By 2005, the one to the north was almost completely filled. The one to the south had started building houses. In 2021, both of them were pretty well built out. And as was mentioned tonight, in 2022, they started the addition to that southern subdivision to add more homes in that area. High density development, high density residential development is the natural end product of evolution of land. Growth and change are inevitable. I think at this point I will pause and let Mr. Jones come up and speak to you and answer any questions. And I'll certainly be available to answer questions. And I've got a few more slides if you're not tired of listening to me. I'll be glad to put them. So Mr. Jones,
good evening, Mayor, board members, staff. Thank you for what you do for the town of Spencer. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about this rezoning. As many of you know, I'm a member of the Spencer community. I live here in Spencer, own a business in Spencer. My kids go to school here in Spencer. I left the North Rand volleyball game to be here tonight at 6 o'clock. So Spencer is home for us. I also know what it's like to serve on the board for you guys making these decisions. I served in your seat for 7 years, from 2011 to 2018. Two big differences I could think of between that and now. One is we were across the street and nowhere near nice facility as you guys have. So good job in getting the space converted and into what it is today. And second, my term on the board, 2 terms on the board, were definitely marked by a lack of new development and growth in Spencer. During those 7 years, there were many years that we didn't see any new homes being built or even homes being sold in Spencer. Those lean years made it very difficult to fully fund our police department, provide equipment to our fire department, give Joel and his team what they need to keep Spencer beautiful. We would have given anything as a board to see new money and interest coming into the town. So I'm grateful that you guys have that now. So that brings us to the land on Hawkinstown Road. As it's been said before, we bought this land because we knew that Spencer is primed and ready for healthy growth in this area. That's stated very clearly in the 2025 land use plan that you guys updated last year that speaks specifically to Hawkinstown Road and high density residential development. It was mentioned, and I thought Mr. Blunt did a good job of going through a lot of what's going on with that. The water sewer extension that we're planning is going to cost us over $1 million. That's something that we have to do to serve that site. But it is something that I've already talked to several people out that area that are excited about possibly being able to tap in, possibly being able to develop or build on land that otherwise wouldn't perk, or to turn unusable land into something that can, because we are paying the high cost to get the water sewer that, in my opinion, should have been run a long time ago down Hawkinstown Road. We'll do a vast majority of that ourselves. While our development is still in the works, one of the things that is very clear from our side as well as the town of Spencer side is that a homeowners association will be in place. There's lots of details involved in that, lots of attorneys that get involved in what that looks like and what that means. But that ordinance, that homeowner association will do a great job of maintaining the ordinances that you guys have in place for the town. It'll allow us to be good neighbors to the others in our development as well as to the neighbors in that area as well. One thing that's been brought up from the very beginning, and I appreciate all the input that's been brought up by the community tonight, as well as last week, and then even in the neighborhood meeting, is this idea of how do we honor Hawkinstown. That's something that our team is very excited about finding ways to do. We love the idea of trying to find a way to incorporate the spirit of Hawkinstown into our plans if we get that far. Yesterday, and Mr. Blunt talked about this, I heard, I can't speak officially about it, but some rumors that North Rand may potentially be losing more teaching positions due to its lack of growth in its enrollment numbers. For anybody that's involved at the high school or has kids there, like I do, that's going in the wrong direction. We desperately need to be adding new options for classes, need more teachers. So losing them is something that we as a school board, but also as a family, are dealing with and trying to figure out what that looks like. I think a development like we're looking at could have a big impact on our local schools. And then last thing I wanted to bring up, and then I'm happy to answer any questions, is that we bought most of this land in 2007 from a Mr. Hawkins as an investment in our community. There were no restrictions or requirements placed on the property when we bought it, when it was sold. And we believe that this development lines up with the desires of the board to increase its tax base, increase its service offerings, grow high density housing availability, and ultimately improve the community of Spencer. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All right, Mr. Blunt.
Just because I love you, I'm going to show you a few more slides. This is the project location in blue and the contiguous properties. And I just wanted you to note that most of those properties, all except 2 of them, are undeveloped. So right now the impact on the surrounding property would be limited because right now the surrounding properties are undeveloped lots, for the most part with no access to the road. This again goes to the impact idea of what the visual impact of this project will be. That's the cornfield turned on its side, 22 acres roughly. That's the development that will fit on that 22 acres. Now, I'm no artist, so forgive me for the next couple slides. If you blow up that site plan, you'll notice that there are several notes about landscaping and buffers. So I started trying to imagine what the front of this project would look like from the street with that buffering. So what you see there is a very amateurish attempt to show the 2 driveways, and I didn't try to draw in all the rest of the property, just the front. And then the landscaping areas that are designated on the plans that will be put in that will to some degree block the view of the development as a whole. This is a Google Maps look at the property from sort of what a drone would look at. And from that altitude and that perspective, it's a pretty cornfield, I have to admit. But that's me stitching together a few Google Maps pictures to give you an idea of what it looks like from the road today. That's what this property looks like. And I, again, apologize for my lack of artistic skills, but from the road, you will be looking at the ends of 4 of the buildings. So you'll see those blocks, and then you'll see the landscaping in front of it. That is a very amateurish view of what the visual impact will be, going from that to that. So back to the question of the eye of the beholder. Not sure which is better or worse. I happen to like nature, so I don't have a problem with our southern growth of vines and trees and weeds. But I think a lot of folks would say that's maybe an improvement as far as the visual goes. And if you had a professional do that drawing, it would even look better. So sorry to bore you with those, but I was so proud of them I had to show them to you. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blunt. Board, at this time, we'll open it up for questions from each of you.
First, I'm the
don't ask me those questions.
The culprit, the cause of. I really appreciate you doing all this. I think it's helpful for us, hopefully helpful for the people behind you to at least understand what the process is. That doesn't necessarily bear on the decision, but the process itself. I don't have a question yet. I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions from the board at this time or input?
I'll be glad to sit down. Thank you, folks.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, board. At this time, you have heard input from the public. You've heard the recommendation from the planning board and the planning director, as well as the proposed developer. And so at this time, we'll open it up for discussion from the board.
I'd like to start off.
Okay.
Through all of these 3 meetings, I have yet to hear one single person stand up and say that they are for this development. The fact that I moved here to Spencer because I like the small town atmosphere, I like the low density growth. I did not want to live in Charlotte like a sardine, or Mooresville, or Concord. That's why I chose to live here. I think it would be a mistake not to listen to our neighbors from Hawkinstown. They have had little voice in anything that has occurred in the development that is imploding upon them. And I urge the board to listen to them as well, because I choose to vote no.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I've struggled with this because I understand the importance of heritage and understand the importance of property. I came from very humble beginnings too, and actually am closing on a piece of property this Friday that was my family home that my parents built. I chose not to live there because the house needed a lot of things done and I just didn't have the money to put into it, but I was able to get enough to make a down payment on a house here in Spencer. In the last week, I have driven out and around through Hawkinstown and was actually followed by somebody in a red pickup truck, probably wondering what the devil this white woman's doing out there driving around my road so slow and looking. You know, I really appreciate the fact that you all are here to speak concerning this. I do know that the people that we talk to here in town tell us the kinds of things they want to see happen to the town of Spencer and to this community. We're looking at industrial development coming in the North Rowan area, and across the river in Davidson County, there's a huge development that's being built over there for industrial purposes. Nucor Steel is one of the companies that has planned to to come in over there. And these people who are coming here with businesses are going to need places to live. We're building little houses in virtually every lot that's out there that's available. I think one of the things we really need is affordable housing. And I'm not sure what affordable housing is anymore. You know, my property value pretty much doubled with the evaluation. So, you know, I'm in favor of these townhomes. You know, when I was looking to buy, all my friends were saying, don't buy something, rent. If something goes wrong, you just pick up the phone and call the landlord. But I felt like I wanted to make an investment in my future and to build some equity. So, you know, I think we need this project. I think we need this housing for people coming in. And this is not going to be minimum housing. It's not going to be something that I feel will be detrimental to the town as a whole. I think the developer is sincere in his intent. I think he's worked with our planning department to try to make this the most attractive and the most desirable project that he can do. And so I will vote for it in spite of the fact that I know that the historical value of this area is important to all of you. You know, if there's some way we can tie that all together, I think that's a great thing. But I did notice when I was driving through out there that there were a lot of areas that were not very well kept. There were a lot of vacant lots that were behind houses that were built in front. You could see that there was space behind it for property to be built, but no roads there to get to it. So somewhere along the way, the ball got dropped. So as much as I really have struggled with this decision, but I think in the interest of growth for this town, we need this development.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Other input from the board at this time?
Yeah, I myself, I was pretty much at first for the growth of the new development, and after hearing the concerned residents that are here and from Thursday as well, I don't know if I could move forward with that project at this moment. That's, you know, pretty much where I stand at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Anyone else?
I have a couple of things I want to say.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
This has really weighed heavily on my mind and heart throughout the last week and even before then. I know and respect and love many of you and have known you for many years and consider you as friends and neighbors. I can identify with your passion for Hawkinstown, and kudos to you for bringing up the wonderful history of it. As a history teacher, I'm all into that, and I think we definitely need to honor that, and we need to have markers out there and incorporate some of the history of Hawkinstown in that area. I feel your passion, because I feel that way about Spencer. I've lived here my whole life, and when I was elected, I stepped forward at a time when Spencer was in trouble, and I promised the town that I was going to try to do what I thought was best for our town. Several things that I thought about as I weighed all this on my mind this week, and I really did. I haven't slept hardly any, because I'd wake up in the middle of the night and think about it from this way. This end of the county is experiencing growth, and it's not going to go away. Long Ferry Road is taking off, and probably other areas around us are going to be taking off. We have got to have some homes here for people to move into. Somebody mentioned, I think Mr. Blunt did, about the constant change that we deal with. I feel like my whole life has been nothing but dealing with change, and I don't like change. I have to adapt to it. But some of the things that I can think about that people thought were terrible, like I went through integration and the civil rights movement in the 60s, along with all of you. And my class was the first integrated class at Northland High School. That's something we are very, very proud of. We had a resident who lived in Hawkinstown. A lot of people were freaking out, and they started this organization, SOS, Save Our Schools. Thank God I never heard my parents mention it, because they didn't think our schools needed to be saved from integration. But a lot of people thought, oh, this is the end, this is doom and gloom, but we came through it, we went through the fire, we came through better and stronger than we've ever been. I've got a lot of concerns about the schools because we are underutilized, and that's a fact. It's good if we can afford it, but the school system cannot afford it. And losing teachers is not something that we want to happen, and we want to have more students. And speaking of that, having more students, and this is a more recent thing that occurred this year. A lot of people were freaking out because we were getting so many 200 Knox students coming over to Northland Middle School. Oh, this is going to do it. This is going to do Northland Middle School in. This is going to bring all this and this and that. Most of it was negative, and I'm talking about citizens and parents and community members who were mainly feeling this, and some students, because of course they were feeding off of their parents' fears. I went over to the meeting at Northland Middle School. I had worked over there for 43 years, and I had never seen a student not welcomed and accepted at Northland Middle School. And I had never seen a community that was added into Northland Middle School not welcomed. And I reminded people of that and said, we need to be sure that these students feel welcome, and we may see something good come out of this. Our own board member, Mr. Hale, when the board had to discuss it, because we had logistical things to do, said, we need to quit looking at this as a problem. This is an opportunity. And I thought, bingo. And that's exactly what it was, and it has turned out to be a good opportunity. And from what I have seen and heard from teachers, administrators, students, and parents, it's actually going very well. So some of those students may decide to stay in the Northland schools. I think they'll be there at least 2 more years. But there's something good that's going to come out of that. Some people are concerned about renters. I'm a renter. I have been a renter since 2017. I rent here in Spencer. I had to sell my home because I could no longer afford to maintain it, and it was too much for me to maintain. I'm elderly too, whether I want to admit it or not. Coach Sechrist is a renter. There are a lot of retired people who prefer to rent. There are retired people that want to live in townhomes because there is less maintenance. So some of the people that buy into a townhome might surprise you. Young families are interested in it because the homes are not affordable anymore. Even in Spencer, average homes are $300,000, $350,000, $400,000. I don't see myself buying a home, another home like that in Spencer, but I might consider a townhome if I can afford one of those. I never thought affordable would be $250,000, but I'm afraid that's where we're headed. So tonight, I'm going to have to vote for my town. I don't think it's going to be doom and gloom. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. I trust Mr. Jones to put up something that we will all be proud of. I trust Mr. Blunt, who I would compare with any planning director in the state. I trust our planning board. When they start talking all this gobbledygook, a lot of it goes above my head, but he can make it understandable. And I have to hear and study. I have studied this stuff all week long. And I think that this will be something good for us in the long run. And I do know this. The people of Hawkinstown are good people, and you will welcome your neighbors if and when they get there. And they're not talking about anytime soon, but when they get there, you will welcome. I know you will. And you'll be good to them because they'll be your neighbors. And they'll share in the history and heritage of your community in Hawkins Meadows. So my vote will have to be with Spencer. And I know that's disappointing to many of you. I know it is, and it breaks my heart, but I have to do what I feel like I need to do. So I hope you respect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Other input?
Briefly. First, I guess both Thursday and tonight, I really appreciate you all coming out and telling us how you feel. This is how the process is supposed to look, where we all sit down civilly and talk to one another, and we all look eye to one another and hopefully understand each other, even if we disagree. You know, I empathize with what you're asking. I know your faces and names. Many of you are your kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews I went to school with or taught over at North. Some of the last names and faces are very familiar to me. So I understand. I do. I get it. And we've listened. I have moped around all weekend thinking about how we're going to vote. Because regardless of a yes or no, this is going to be a tough decision and a controversial one. And we haven't had many of those in my 2 years on the board. It's been really one or two that have really got us up. And so I know this is difficult. And I think what I do owe you, I think is that maybe we've all done, is that regardless of whether I vote yes or no, I need to tell you why. So when I came on the board and when I moved to Spencer 10 years ago, or well, I guess in 2010, so I guess almost 15 years ago now, Spencer was languishing. And really, just to put it bluntly, at least from my vantage point, we've languished since the 60s when the shops closed down. When I was in law school in first year torts, one of my professor began to tell a story about a town just up the interstate with an old factory that everyone should go visit, but as an example of one of the cases we were talking about. And I realized he was talking about my town. And I told him that, and we had a good chuckle. I was mildly amused and slightly embarrassed that without knowing it, he had highlighted how our town had been stuck in time for 60 years. That's not happening anymore. When I go outside of Rowan County, I work up in Davidson. When I tell people I live here and I'm on the board, they say, wow, what a neat town. You guys are doing some really cool stuff. And when we go out in Rowan County, we hear that from other folks. Wow, how are you guys doing what you're doing? You're growing. I in good conscience, I can't vote to say no to that. We need development. We need people. That's the only way we grow. And nowadays, in modern times, a town either grows or it dies. That's just where we are. And maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now, it'll be different. But it's a growth or death for a town in 2023. And so I can't vote for death. I can't do that. Not for our town. But what I can tell you, and I'm taking a personal pledge to you all, and many of you know me, so I have no doubt you will hold me to it. And I challenge our board that if indeed we say yes to this here in just a few moments, one of the concerns that we've had that I do think resonates with me is that these folks who've lived here for so long need to make sure that their community is preserved and it's safe. And so we must make sure that our public safety, that our public works, and they all do a fantastic job. If you don't know them, hopefully you'll get to know them. They're fantastic. They're awesome. They're amazing. Hopefully you won't get to know them in a bad way, hopefully in a good way. But in any event, that we make sure that those concerns about safety, about access, all those things stay where they are, that they don't change, or that they get better, if anything. And as long as I'm on board, I'll make sure you have that, just as we make sure we have it for anyone else. And I'll yield my time.
Thank you. So I don't get a vote in this evening, but I have a lot of thoughts, and I have, similar to our board members, have given it a lot of consideration and mulled it over. I understand where many of you are coming from, having grown up on a 200-acre farm in the western part of Rowan County. And so having grown up in that agricultural area and seeing development that happens around, I understand the fear. I understand the concern. And I understand the comments that have been brought before us. But I want to make sure that we're not jumping to extremism. Because what we've heard are thoughts and concerns and stories of what the worst case scenario is. And what I want you to do is begin to think, well, how could this be a best case scenario? And maybe it's not, but maybe it's not a bad scenario. Because it's incumbent upon us as a board to consider what is best for all of Spencer, to hear from individual residents. It's the residents of Spencer that elected us to these positions, that expect us to care for Spencer as a whole. And when we do that, unfortunately, there are people that aren't happy. There are people that are happy and there are people that aren't. And that's the way it goes. And it's a tough spot to be in, I'll tell you what. But what I want to stress is that the town of Spencer has a planning board. The planning board is selected based on qualifications appointed by the board, and it's our job as a board of aldermen to grant them the authority to oversee those processes and then come to us with a recommendation. And so, Mr. Morgan, while the public input that we have heard has been largely against this development and this rezoning, we've also heard unanimous support from our planning board that's been appointed. Now, one of the things I want everybody here to keep in mind, because this is really important regardless of what happens tonight, those of you that live in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, and I know there's a question whether you live in Salisbury's or Spencer's, Mr. Blunt can help with those questions. But those of you that own and live in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, we have over the past months, even before any of this started, reached out because we have desperately been in need of representatives on our extraterritorial jurisdiction. It's peaceful. You don't have any issues that you have to worry about. These issues don't come up that often. But the reality is, if you're not involved and you don't have representation on those boards, this exact thing happens without your community having input on it. And so what I would implore you to do is, those of you that are interested, consider applying for the ETJ positions, because we want your perspective. We desperately do. And so going forward, those of you that said you don't have a voice, well, you do. You have an opportunity. And maybe it's because we haven't done as good of a job publicizing it, even though we've reached out and mailed and tried to let people know. But regardless, this is my plea to you. Get involved, please. Because regardless of what happens here tonight, that growth is coming. And that growth is not just coming here in downtown Spencer. It's coming to our ETJs everywhere in Rowan County. And now's the time to get involved with that. The other thing I want to point out, there's this question about housing stock. So I attended the Rowan Realtors quarterly meeting last week and heard about all the growth and development that's happening, the jobs that are being created, and that's all wonderful stuff for our community. But it does cause concern and cause us pause for some of the things that you've brought up here tonight. That growth has to go somewhere. People have to live somewhere. And so to create higher paying jobs across the board in our community, not just for new people, but people that live here like you and like me, we have to have that type of growth, and we have to have a place where people can live that are coming to this area. Okay? There's a saying that a rising tide raises all ships, and that's very true. And I think we're seeing that in Rowan County. And yes, it's important that we manage that growth, but the growth is coming. And if we're not managing it, if we're not figuring out ways to accommodate it and do that in a thoughtful and well-planned development process, then some of those concerns that you brought up can happen. But what I want to stress is that we have a process, and we have, as somebody mentioned, a planning group and senior staff that have spent time in many other municipalities and have long careers in doing this type of work. And because of that, we're trying to do this the right way. And yes, it's going to make people concerned. You know, it's the situation that, yeah, it's in your backyard. We understand that. I think you heard that the developer understands that too. And you've got a local developer, unlike somebody from out of state or a large city, right? Because keep in mind, regardless, that growth's coming. And so is it growth that you want from somebody you know and somebody whose ear you have and can provide input, or somebody you don't know from somewhere else? Because it's coming. And so it's either the neighbor you know or the neighbor you don't know. That's the thing. The other thing that I want to stress is this jumping to conclusion that crime's going to increase. Okay? I don't know what the rationale for that is, if it's because you think they're going to be renters. But my mayor pro tem here, I don't have to worry about her and crime, right? Keep in mind these townhomes, what they're primarily going to serve. Young couples, young individuals just getting their start in the workforce, folks starting with young families. They're looking for vibrant communities, and they're looking for things like townhomes. That's what they want now. And on the flip side of that, we talked about within the Hawkinstown area that there are a lot of aging residents as well, right? Taking care of our elders. Rowan County severely lacks in elder housing. Severely lacks. Things like townhomes provide a great alternative to having to care for a large single-family home. And so you look at some of the other development like this in town, in Salisbury, Wiltshire Village, Hidden Creek, places like that, and they become great little communities for budding families, for folks that are aging out of their larger homes. And so that's something we don't have in Spencer right now. And it's something that people have said we desperately need. It just happens to be that we have a developer that's interested in the area in which you live. And I understand that. I do. Having grown up on that farm, I understand. But the other piece of that is the land was deeded down through inheritance, right? And so each person that land was deeded to had a right to do with that property what they wanted. And unfortunately, for those of you looking to preserve Hawkinstown and the property, unfortunately, somebody decided to sell that off. There's nothing that our board can do to change that. And there's nothing that our board can do to prevent that. That's only something that the heirs that have inherited that can do. And there are ways to do that. One way is through the land trust and through conservation easements. If you don't want the land to be built on, or you only want to be able to build your house on it and never have anybody else do it, no matter who that property goes to, talk to the land trust. They can develop those conservation easements that keep that from happening. But the situation is we have an individual, a group of individuals that purchased the property. They've done so through all of the legal methods that are required. And so they have a right to do with that property, just like each of you have had a right to do with your property. And so what I would beg you is, if this is approved tonight for the rezoning, and keep in mind it's rezoning only at this point, there are other steps to get involved in the process. But that I would beg you to be good neighbors. And just like you welcome each other and you've welcomed new folks to your neighborhood, that you would do the same with the new neighbors in Hawkins Meadow. We are a welcoming town. And the last thing we want to do is show that we're not a welcoming town. And by turning down development, especially housing, that shows that we're not a welcoming town. And that's the last thing that we want. We're primed for growth. We're going to do it the right way, but we're also going to do it in a way that benefits all of our town, and it makes us truly a model small town. And so again, I feel what each of you are feeling. I do. I totally do. And I want you to understand that regardless of what happens, Hawkinstown that's in our ETJ, we want you to have representation and we want you to have a voice on our planning board. And finally, I'll end with this. The annexation question, right, only applies to the parcel that's being considered, and that will happen down the road, okay? Nobody else here is going to be annexed unless you want to be. And so I heard a question about, well, what about water and sewer for us? What about town services? Nobody's offered that to us. Well, I'm telling you right now, if you want that, all you have to do is ask. And our board can find a way to make that happen. There's a cost to it, right? It means you pay city taxes as well. But it means you not only are a part of Hawkinstown, but you're a part of the town of Spencer. And you have representation like every other resident. You garbage service, police, fire support, all of that, water and sewer. And yes, that will come at a cost to us. It does. But if that's something you want, tell us. We want to hear it. With that, I've talked way too long. And so I'll open it up to our board if there is any other further discussion or if there is a motion on the floor.
Yes, I would like to address your comment about if we vote against this rezoning, that's a sign that we are rejecting development. That's not the case. Mr. Blunt repeatedly said that growth and change are inevitable. I will agree to that, but it doesn't say what type of growth or what type of change. What I would like to see is minimal growth or lower growth, not a heavy impact of 142 units going into a single family home community.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Other comment from the board? And if there is no comment, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt and approve the rezoning as suggested and indicated by the applicant and by our zoning, or by our planning department.
All right, there is a motion from Mr. Howe for approving rezoning of the Hawkins Meadow development from AG to RMST.
Second.
There is a second from Ms. Sledge. Is there any further discussion at this point? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that is 3 in the affirmative. All opposed? That is 2 against. The motion has passed and the property rezoning has been approved. The next item is to consider approving a statement of consistency for the development. And that is also in your agenda packet. Mr. Blunt, anything on that item that you need to present to the board?
The language is there that spells out the section of the comprehensive plan.
And just to add in that this is all still part of the same item. It's a second step in the approval process. Correct. And there is some recommended language available in the packet.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the statement of consistency and reasonableness stating that we find that this rezoning is consistent in general with the town's comprehensive land use plan per requirements of NCGS 160D 605A. Said plan stating specifically Hawkinstown Road area north of Hawkinstown Road, east and south of 7th Street, and west of the Salisbury ETJ border includes a mixture of small and medium-sized parcels with limited residential development, combined and redivided, and provided with municipal water and sewer. This could become a prime area for higher density residential development annexation. We further find this rezoning is reasonable in all ways as prescribed by NCGS 160D 605B. This rezoning will be beneficial to the citizens of the town of Spencer.
All right. So there's a motion on the statement of consistency and reasonableness from Mr. Howe.
I'll second that.
There's a second from Ms. Sledge. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, please raise your hands, all in favor. All right, that is 4, and all opposed. And that is 1 against. All right, that statement is approved. Thank you all. Thank you, staff. Thank you, board. Thank you to the citizens that have come out tonight and to all the other meetings. I would encourage you, please stay involved in the process. Please provide input. And I would encourage you to reach out to the developer as well and make sure that they work with you to address your concerns as well. Thank you all very much. The next item on our agenda is to consider approving Resolution 23-19, which is a Standback Forest additional 8-acre addition. And then also the next item is Resolution 23-20, which is the Carter House acquisition. And so these items are related to the Standback Educational Forest, and I'll invite, it appears, Mr. Blunt and Mr. Morris up.
I think we will present to you, if we get our PowerPoint up. Joe and I are going to, as he put it, tag team this. We'll probably present both of them at the same time, items 8 and 9. This is a land ownership transfer for parcels 043030 and 031131. First on the table is that red blotch is the 8-acre parcel that the land trust would like to transfer to us to add to our Standback Forest. If you remember, not too long ago, they donated about 40 acres to us. That's that surrounding blue property. This is a little broader view showing how it fits into the Standback Forest. It actually abuts Grants Creek, gives us Grants Creek frontage, where we plan at some point to put a trail down to Grants Creek. This is a little closer view so you can see the details in a little clearer perspective. This is a parcel map showing you the surrounding parcels. And the one on the right shows you the floodplain. We heard about floodplains in an earlier discussion. All of this 8 acres is either in the floodplain or the floodway of Grants Creek, so it can never be developed, even if it didn't have a conservation easement on it. This again is showing you that property, a little clearer view of the floodplain and floodway. It also shows you where our proposed 7th Street trailhead is located, where the 7th Street townhome project is located, and where the 8th Street ballpark is located. So you'll have some idea of how these will all tie together. This is where we get to the meat of the issue and why we're having to wait so long to get it transferred. That is part of the Salisbury Rowan Utilities utility map showing a line that runs down through the middle of this property. And this is an easement map that was created to show the easements that went around with that pipeline. And unfortunately, at some point in the process between the Soil and Water, who it was that funded this one, Joe? Land and Water Trust Fund provided funding so the land trust could purchase this property from Bell Realty some time back, several years. At some point, an easement was never defined for that line that runs across this property. And they were concerned about transferring ownership to Spencer until that easement issue was worked out. That has taken them much longer than anticipated because both organizations, the Land Trust and the Foundation, are understaffed as far as this kind of work goes. So at this point, they decided they just want to give it to us with the question mark about the easement. And I'll stop there and say that both Joe and I have considered this. If we were buying a piece of property that we might want to sell in the future or we might want to develop in the future, not having a clear title, which is what this is called, an unresolved easement, would be a problem because the bank wouldn't loan us money on this property. We couldn't get building permits without knowing where the easement was. We certainly intend to resolve the easement question going forward. It will be between our attorney and attorneys from the other bodies to get this defined and surveyed and put into the deed as an easement. But at this point, Joe and I would recommend accepting this gift of property to add to the standback forest, since there is no fear of selling the land, developing the land, or having to get a bank loan on it. We will make it a part of our park, and that's all we plan to do with it, all we can do with it. And I will certainly yield to our distinguished attorney to make any comments on that.
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear back from Andy Abramson, who's the land trust attorney. And he was engaged in this, and we've been sort of waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen. And it's just backed up at the state.
Yeah.
And so I've reached out to Andy and asked him to kind of just bring me up to speed with what he was doing there, with whom he was working, and those issues. So I'm waiting to hear back from Andy on that process. But I think that we as staff collectively are comfortable, as Mr. Blunt just said, accepting the property with this sort of defect, appreciating that, one, we hope to get it resolved. I don't think there was any indication from anyone at the state that it wouldn't be resolved, number one. And number two, I'm not sure that if it's not resolved, it's really going to impact our projects and what we want to do.
So I want to point out a couple things too, because I actually met at the request of Travis Moorhead, who is the executive director for the Land Trust, and then Crystal, who is basically in charge of all of their conservation properties. And this is a property that they are, I think, very, very ready to get off their books. They've been working very hard to transfer this. It was actually originally supposed to be part of the transfer of the additional doubling of the park that we celebrated a few months ago. But they had held off on this specifically because of the question about the sewer easement. The sewer line was there before the easement was ever put into place, so I don't think there's any question about the right to that easement. It's just a matter of, and it's an access easement for SRE to be able to access that sewer should they need to. There is a land and water conservation easement on that property. And basically what would have to happen is the state, the Land and Water Fund, would have to essentially, they just have to abandon the easement within that small portion that they want, that we need the sewer easement. All indications are that that shouldn't be a problem. It's just, like you said, it's been sitting on somebody's desk at the state. And I think the Land Trust thought that we would be better suited individually to try and work through the issue. I also believe that we probably are. We've got very strong connections with people within the state that do these type of things. We've already talked to them and already gotten some assurances that they will look into it and hopefully work to expedite it. So I think it's a great thing. It fulfills all of that original or that additional land that they were going to grant to us. And it's great footage along Grants Creek that will help preserve that area for many years to come. Any questions from staff on this item? Okay.
Second part of the show is another piece of property that the Land Trust owns, parcel 031131, which is a 1.16 acre piece of land with a little over 1,300 square foot house on it. The house has a 224 square foot deck and a 696 foot enclosed garage. And with that, I will let Joe tell you about that piece of property and why we want it. Go for it. Was that the only slide that you had of that slide? Back up. Well, good. So a couple of key things about the Carter property. This parcel has been in what is a life estate that was purchased by the Land Trust. The Carters had been living in the house for a number of years, and they are now transitioning to elderly care and essentially, as I understand it, abandoning the life estate, the rights of living there as long as they wanted. And so the Land Trust is in a position that they are willing to donate this to the town of Spencer. Looking at this slide, the area to the top, above the red rectangle there, is the parking lot for the primary access to the Standback Educational Forest. It's also near the main gate and also the pond and the floating deck and the picnic shelter that's down there. And so this is a very opportune situation for the town to take this property, including the structure. It would allow us to study how this property might be used. I will state that there will be in the donation of the property, there will be a restriction that requires that the property is used for the town's purposes related to recreation, public gatherings, civic uses, that sort of thing. And so we're essentially going to be, should the board decide to accept the property, gifted a very nice home that is in excellent condition, excellent roof, has a new HVAC system, has a walk-in, walk-out basement on the back side of it. In this large garage, we just in sort of conversation around town hall have projected the idea that this would be a great maintenance facility for the park, educational facility. There might be some opportunity to do something within the structure. That
I was getting ready to say, we had talked about a nature center coming off of Salisbury Avenue, going down through the kudzu. So, so this was about a year ago.
This has an opportunity to meet some of those needs.
To meet that.
I would just, without obligating the town to anything, think that offer a comment that there might be an opportunity within the structure to do something that recognizes Fred and Alice Standback for their immense conservation contributions to the town of Spencer and beyond. So that's kind of the nature of that. I will move ahead. Maybe not. I'm sorry.
One of the other things, Board, I'll point out, we've talked about at some point we're going to have to establish a Parks and Recreation Department. That could also serve as a great location to house that department and staff.
So, it's a beautiful piece of property.
It is.
Yes.
It's very well maintained. The yard's just really, really nice.
So the first thing to do is, for the board, it would be to decide if you want to accept that. And so within the agenda packet, there are the two resolutions. Work with the town clerk and town manager to craft language for Resolution 2319 and Resolution 2320 that deal with the two parcels distinctly. Has some sort of flowery language in here about how it might align with our comprehensive recreation plan. We actually identify it as a potential park facility on our recreation plan because we knew of Mr. Standback's intent years ago when he helped the land trust acquire this property in the first place, so that it might eventually make its way to ownership by the town. And let's see, I guess the really key point of it is in the resolution that the town would consider adopting the two properties, and it authorizes the town manager and the town attorney to execute any necessary related documents going forward. So that's sort of the gist of the resolutions, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, any questions from the board at this point?
If with the home, if we didn't accept it, what would happen?
So I would imagine, I'm going to say, I'm not going to say what I was getting ready to say. But I know that Mr. Standback has very strongly indicated to the land trust his willingness or interest in having the town take it. And I imagine if the town does not take it, that they would consider some sort of free market consideration for putting it. It's a beautiful residential property, and I'm pretty confident that it would be purchased for residential purpose. It's zoned residential now, sure. And one of the first things that I think we would probably want to do once if and when the transfer takes place is zone it civic, which is consistent with the rest of the Standback Forest. And also, that would hold true for the 8-acre parcel on the other end as well, to rezone that. And interestingly enough, at that point, because the town would own it, you could consider annexing it into the town.
How many acres is it?
At the 8.8, you know how much is not in the? Most of the land area that we accepted was in the town limits, but so there, Steve is suggesting
maybe we can get 40 townhomes in there.
Got a conservation easement on it.
Thinking ahead.
Questions, comments from the board?
This is not the property that's adjacent to Kudzu Valley.
No, ma'am.
No, this is the property
on
right by the
11th
11th
Street
Street parking lot.
When you
Right
drive
at the
down
gate.
11th Street to the gravel parking lot
Okay.
by the pond and
Yeah.
the deck and the picnic shelters, that house
That house,
right
okay.
there at the end of
Yeah.
11th Street.
All right, so board, again, resolution 23-19 is to accept the property donation of parcel 043030. And then that is the, let me make sure, that is the Carter House, is that correct? No, there,
030, it
There
says
was-
on here is
Oh,
the,
2319
yes.
is for the house,
Okay.
the Carter House.
Great.
And 2320 is for the 8 acres.
Okay.
Is that right, Anna?
That's what's on.
I think it's.
I know there were some
yes.
updates today on which one was which.
Yeah,
but
we had
so
we had a
okay
transposition in the parcel numbers.
And there
but I
may,
think we're
I'm
correct
looking at what's in front of me, I'm actually seeing both numbers. There's a set of numbers in the title and a different set of numbers in the language of the resolution.
Mhm.
So it may be that we will need to correct the typographical error post-adoption, but I believe we had made a correction today. Was
Okay,
that?
so I'm operating out of this book that was at the back of the room.
Is that in? Was the correction today on
Was
the
this
title?
corrected version?
The one in front of me, the parcels match.
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the one matches and the other one, no. I need to change the, in the first whereas, the parcel, it doesn't match at the top of the resolution. I
Joe,
missed
you and
that.
I don't
They're both-
review
they're
stuff
both
very well.
wrong. They're both switched.
You and I didn't catch that.
Okay, so for the board's purpose, that's a clerical update that'll happen.
Yeah.
But for the board's purpose, 23-19 is the Carter House, correct? Or the 8 acres?
Per the agenda, yes. 2019 is for the Carter House.
Okay, so board, is there a motion to approve resolution 23-19 to accept the Carter House property?
So moved.
So motion by Mr. Morgan, second by Mr. Muhammad, all in favor? All right, that's unanimous, all opposed? All right, that is approved. Next is resolution 23-20. That will be updated for any clerical issues on that to reflect acceptance of the property donation of the 8.8 acres adjacent to Grants Creek. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Muhammad, second by Mr. Morgan, all in favor? All right, all opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you all. Clear as mud.
If I could make sort of a bracketing statement, I think that the board should be very proud that people are working so hard on your behalf and wanting to build on the momentum that has been created in this town. And knowing that Mr. Standback is supportive of this,
and the land trust is willing to make the accommodations to get the transaction done so that we can move forward with the development of that 8 acres is a real testament to the trust that is being placed in this community. So I'm glad to be a part of that.
Thank you for your
We're
work.
glad you are too.
All right, board, we will move to our departmental reports. And with that, we'll invite our planning department.
You have a 3-minute time limit.
Yes,
I hope y'all are as tired of listening to me as I am talking. So, I will follow up with what Joe said, and he mentioned the annexation. There is a wedge of property down there, including this 8 acres, that will be back to you soon for an annexation. Also, this allows us to close the road right away, the extension of Whitehead that runs down into this property. We have permission from DOT to close that, and part of the property goes to us, part of it goes to the adjoining property owner, and then to proceed with the 7th Street Trailhead development. We've been sort of waiting to get all this stuff. All the pieces are now in place, so we're going to be moving ahead with some of those things. The planning department activity report is in your package. I have absolutely no other comments unless you have questions. Did I make my 3 minutes, Mr. Moore?
It depends. Are there questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
You've done a lot of good work this month. Thank you.
All right, next is our code enforcement report. I'll forward.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will keep it short and sweet. The code enforcement report has been provided. We are still venturing into our contract that we have with Central Lina, who is assisting on code enforcement currently. The report is very, very similar to what you've been receiving previously. I will tell you, I ran the numbers just before I came in to kind of compare what this report reflects for August and what is going on. There are currently 26 cases open and seven cases that he has moved to pending status, which means those are 7 that he is in the process of abating. There are additional about 7 or 8 that he's closed out, that he has resolved. So we are making headway. He's learning our systems. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but he is working with us 2 days a week, and I think that's going very well currently. But if you have any questions, I will try to answer the code enforcement questions. I do not know if I'm the best person for it, but I will give it a shot.
Mr. Allen.
Shoot. I see 801 2nd Street on the trees. Is that the property with the big tall pine trees right up along Whitehead that are progressively collapsing?
I believe it is. We had a few. I believe there were 3 that we had that were logged as hazardous trees that he's went out and reviewed. Is that the one that you have sent out? Is that the one you sent? I believe you sent out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, good that we're going to help her out with that, because I know that's expensive, and those trees are really coming down. I mean, yeah. Other question, just a note, and I'm not trying to tattletale, but but I am. But I am tattletelling. And this is really a property owner and management question, not a tenant question. So I want to be clear about what I'm asking or what I'm suggesting. The Boone Rock Apartments. I live out there, and super nice people out there, but there's like windows falling in and all kinds of stuff. And I don't know the situation. I don't know who owns it. It doesn't really even matter, honestly, other than I mean, that's not a tenant issue. That's a landowner, land management issue, or or that kind of thing. I just want to bring that up because it's. I mean, I think at one point maybe it's been fixed or repaired, but at one point there was someone basically had a trash bag as a window, and I know that's not on the tenant, or shouldn't be on the tenant. That should be on the owner.
Right. And we can definitely have him look into
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're still, I mean, I will tell you, we're working currently based, he's doing a little proactive work just going out and looking for offenses, but obviously he's managing what was left.
Sure.
And what we've got coming in between the portal and coming in on our work. So, but I can definitely key that one in and have him take a look at it.
How do we deal with, there's a huge portion of the tree that's down 2 houses down from me, and I think the house is rooted, but it came down in that last storm. I think it was the last storm, maybe in the first storm. But it's there in the yard and looks like nothing's been touched. So do we call that to the attention of the homeowner or how does that work?
I'd say put a request in on the portal.
Yes.
Have
Very
them
good
look
answer.
into it.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
If
that's
there's a request in there, we'll
any
look
of our
into it.
citizens, if there's a question about anything like that, go ahead and submit it to the portal, and that way, code enforcement can look into it and determine if it's an issue that we need to bring to the property owner's attention. Regardless, it's not the tenant's responsibility; it's the property owner's responsibility.
And I think that house is rental. Yeah. I'm not certain about that, but it fell across the fence, and part of it's in one yard, and part of it's So
that 4th and Whitehead.
No, it's on Charles.
Oh, okay.
Charles, probably 504, 506, 508, probably 506 and 508. I'll be a tattletale.
And quite honestly, we have a really high compliance rate. So typically it just takes a little push or a little notification, and a lot of compliance comes into place.
All right. Anything else on code enforcement? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the police department.
Now something I can talk about that I understand. I provided the monthly report as usual. You will notice it was a busy month. We have over 2,000 events this month, so we have been very, very busy. But nothing exceptionally bad. A lot of proactive work and a lot of calls that were being answered that were dispatched. But if you have any questions about the report, I can try to answer that for you.
All right. Questions on police department report?
I did ask Chief File about one thing that was on it, and that was missing juveniles. And he explained to me that was when a teacher perhaps reported somebody hadn't shown up or hadn't done what they needed to. But I was concerned about a missing juvenile in our area.
And it happens almost daily. Almost daily we hear those calls come out. And quite often it's where the kids have missed the bus or got off with a friend and parents are looking for them. So we have a few a month typically during the school year, especially here at the beginning of the school year. I will say our 2 cadets that are in training are doing very well. So one of them is the class leader. So I was called by the director and he complimented how good they're doing. So we actually went down and visited with them to kind of do a little impromptu checkup. So when we walked in, one of our cadets was leading the class, like actually leading the class, and the instructors were leaned against the wall watching him do it. So we've got 2 really good ones down there. So awesome. We're fortunate. So they'll be back with us around Thanksgiving time. So and anybody that's out for the 5K this weekend, they're going to come in and help assist on that. So if you haven't met them, they'll be out here for that. So.
Just one note, and I'm just going to try to keep the pledge I made a little bit ago. Obviously, this is a ways away, but we got a lot of concerned folks about safety, and understandably so. I mean, it's a very valid concern. Yeah. I just think, ask it for me personally, that we just make sure we're interactive and not reactive, but forward looking about developing a plan to make sure that those folks out there feel safe and feel looked after and protected.
Definitely. That is a very low crime area currently. Sure. We get seldom we'll get requests from the sheriff's office to assist them out around Hawkinstown. So we're always there if they request us to go out there. I mean, it's very close, and if the growth goes through and we see growth in that area, then obviously we'll be out there even more than what we are now. So.
One other thing. It used to be that I would hear quite a bit of grumbling about the police department, and now that's turned 180. Fortunately, there are a lot of people commenting, making good comments about our PD, and please tell your officers that I think a lot of it has to do with your leadership. I really do. And so just wanted to let you know.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate the kind words. Definitely, it's the guys. I will wholeheartedly say that. So they work very hard. They make me look good, and they make the town look good. So I'm very proud of what they're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is our fire department report. Chief Lanning.
Mayor and board, good afternoon.
Oh, it's evening now.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're borderline night at this point.
You say good morning, too.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. You got my report before you. If you have any questions, feel free, and I will answer them the best of my ability. The one thing that I did want to highlight, and it's not to stand here and beat a dead horse. We know the issue. Coming up in October, we have 60 shifts, and currently over 30 are vacant. So, obviously, I know there's some issues going on in Salisbury, and that's kind of been plastered everywhere. And me and Peter have talked. 2 people in a fire truck is dangerous. We know that. We're doing the best we can. Going down to 1, going back a couple of years is extremely dangerous for the citizens, for us. No word on safer yet. And I know we've got some other plans and things that we're trying to explore. But obviously I feel obligated to let you guys know that stuff as well. So I can tell you availability was due on the 10th, and between myself and Chief Lewis, we probably sent 10 reminders to the part-timers to put in days. Some put in 2, some put in 10. On the flip side, we've got a couple. We've got one. His shift yesterday actually was his last shift of the year. He's at 999 hours. So we're there's obviously a restraint there, but we're trying. So just wanted to inform you of that. You brought up the apartments.
Yeah.
So the trash bag was on the window. I think maybe it's been fixed. It was an assault. There was some issues.
Okay, gotcha.
Things went through the window, so I do know why that was there. And I wish I could have said it with them here. Several comments was fire and police, and that they want us or they want additional help on Hawkinstown. Is just to publicly reiterate that that's not our fire district, and unless we're invited, we don't go. Although we've had several fires on Hawkinstown this year. It's nothing negative. It's a volunteer department. But we are normally there 5 minutes or so before the home department. So it's not that there's a difference. We protect their property just the same as we do anybody in Spencer. So any questions for me?
Is Ellis there assigned?
It is. Yes.
On the staffing thing, it's a loaded question. I know the answer. There's always the answer right now is more money. I mean, how can we help? Because we want you guys to feel staffed and not overworked, and do we need to pay more? You mentioned the $9.99. Do we need to make them full time? What do we need to do?
So I had a conversation today. I was actually assisting another department with an ISO inspection. Supposedly there are some alternatives. Obviously, we can offer a percentage into a retirement, which would allow them to go over 1,000 hours. Supposedly there's also a waiver that can be signed if they're already receiving benefits, same benefits we could offer them. And so I'm going to explore that. The flip side, the ones that are kind of to their cap, they don't work full-time anywhere else. So that really wouldn't apply to them. Unless there is still a waiver where they can say, I just don't want my benefits. I just want to work 2,000 hours, which would be great. Pay, I don't think would make a difference. As weird as that is to say, I know China Grove, they opened up the process. They went to 3 on a truck 24/7 in this fiscal year. They opened the process and are having to reopen it. It's nobody wants to be a public servant right now, unfortunately.
And just to add in this is to make sure everybody's clear. Our current policy is that we only offer benefits to full-time staff. We don't offer any sort of retirement, et cetera, for part-time staff. And in order to stay in compliance with state regulations with the retirement system, that means they cannot work more than 999 hours and on any given year. Now that's been a discussion we've had over the years about how you count those hours, what's the year, et cetera. And the best that we can understand it is that There's nobody actually counting the hours. But if you have a job that requires more than 999 hours of work, then it needs to be contributing towards the retirement system. And so our way to manage that over the last few years has been that's we make sure that that's the way our part-time positions are structured. They do not require any more hours than that. So that's kind of the issue. So that a change in the policy where we would consider offering some level of benefits to a part-timer could be something that would allow somebody who's interested in working more than that to do so, and us be in compliance with those regulations. On the other side of the coin, you may or may not have that many people who would that maybe that wouldn't change the shift scenario so much. So
Sure.
our big issue is around that we think the model for staffing is around the full-time positions and this current weight on our federal grant application.
So 999 hours for the year.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is for the year beginning July 1?
So the best that I've been told, and I've reached out to everyone, including the School of Government, and every answer is different. I've heard it's a fiscal year, I've heard it's a physical year, and I've heard it's a rolling year. The majority of everyone I've spoken to, they go off of January to December, just one of the easiest things to track. And so that's currently how we do it. I do know, and granted this was a different administration, I worked 1,700 hours here. But those things weren't monitored before, as maybe as closely. On the flip side, this one in particular individual, he's told me he'll come work for free. Now, I didn't put it on a timesheet, but then we start, it's a whole nother area that we don't want to play in.
No, you don't do that.
So, you know, if we had two full-timers and that third spot that we need, truly have to have, was what we were dropping below, I wouldn't be as nervous. And it's like me and Peter talked, you know, the reality is, if we go to one, even some days when we have two, I can't be the fire chief. I can't. I have to be on the fire truck. If we go to the city of Salisbury, we have to send 3 people. So our hands are tied. And I know I've said it, we're doing amazing things with a low staffing level. But the thought of, if we get to a minimum, what does that look like? Right? What services can we then provide to where we're not putting ourselves in jeopardy or our citizens? Hawkinstown's an example. We had 2 guys on a truck. I married up with them. Me and another part-timer. The last fire we had, we were inside until the roof collapsed. It was on us. And we're doing our job, right? But that's when that minimum manpower. I love everybody in this town. Will do anything for them, but I have a wife and kids that I'm gonna go home to. So what's the risk versus the reward? And unfortunately, low staffing puts us in that predicament.
So I've got a question. I mean, you've got an individual. This individual is part-time. It's about to hit the limit. I mean, do they also work another job?
Yeah, he also works at East Spencer part-time.
Okay. Would they be willing to work full-time?
Yes.
Because here's my thing. If we've got part-timers that are only signing up for 2 hours, my thought is we're better served by a full-time person that we know we're going to get. It addresses that staffing issue. I know we have to pay benefits and all of that, but that's a guarantee, right? And if we've got people that want to be that committed, and we're having staffing issues, I don't see why we can't.
And that was one of the things that me and Peter have talked about is, do we revamp, you know, ideal world, we add 3 full-time drivers, and even if we cut our part-time to 12 hours a day, I'm there 8 to 5. We may have a 2-hour gap where there's not 3 people on a fire truck. Have our part-timers in at night. People are going to pick up night shifts because reality is you're going to come in clean and go to bed. Other than that, you get up and run calls, right? That's easy money for somebody that just wants a supplemental income. Is we could reallocate some funds. I think the biggest thing at this point is just kind of seeing what the revenue this year is doing. How is that going to roll in? What does it look like? So.
We can't be going with shifts uncovered. I mean, I think that's as simple as it is. You work too hard to get us to a Class 2 ISO rating, but we can't take steps backwards as a department.
Yes.
If you have someone who you like, you trust them, they're good, they like being here, you can't put a price on safety. I mean, and we want your people to be safe, we want our citizens to be safe. We got to make that happen.
Growth and change. Let's put 4 on.
There it is. So I think, I mean, obviously, Peter, this is, your role for the town, staffing, working with Chief Lanning, but I think hearing from the board's committed to finding a way to make sure we have shifts covered, and if it means exploring something different with our staffing, whether that be full-time and backing off on some of the part-time, I think you have a board that's supportive of that.
Yeah, and you can't have somebody here working that's not supposed to be here.
Right.
Oh, no,
That's
absolutely.
a liability issue.
Most
You
definitely.
can't.
Right.
Nor has that been allowed.
Yeah.
And I even had a meeting last night with our volunteers. We still have 6 volunteers, and it was kind of me begging to still be a part of. Right, you're still welcome. We still want you to play a part in this. These guys have been here 30 years. Now the town's blossoming. I want you to be a part of it, and they do. But obviously, it's the dynamic of where we're headed. You add part-time staff, your volunteer dies off. You add full-timers. By the time they get up out of bed at 2 in the morning to make it halfway to the fire station, the truck's gone. Sure, we have more. By the time they get that truck and get there, your basic medical calls are already clearing. To them, what's the worth? They're still committed. We're just trying to be creative, and where do they plug into the puzzle?
And I think the other key too, board, is that a lot of this hinges on that SAFER grant too. I think we've placed a lot of stock in being able to get that. It's just unfortunate that our federal government has delayed that process, and we're at the mercy of them. But I don't think we can't sit back and wait for things to happen. I think we have to be proactive and address it, regardless of SAFER grant situations. And I know that's easier said than done. It's easy for us to sit up here as a board and say that, but I know we've got the best staff around that can figure out a way to make it work. Okay. That's good. Thank you.
Any further questions from me?
Make it so, number 1.
Do what?
Make it so, number 1.
Thank y'all.
Thanks.
Did you get the mailbox up?
I did.
Good.
All right. Next is Mr. Taylor, Public Works.
Powerful. Good evening, Mayor and members of the
Good
board.
evening.
I will try to make mine as quick as possible, but I do have quite a few updates for you. Just letting everybody know that brush has been extremely heavy for the last several weeks since the storms. We had one, and then we got hit with another one. So we're getting there as quick as possible. Everything's starting to clean up. So hopefully tonight's didn't do anything. I haven't heard anything. So we're on track to get everything done. Hopefully by the end of the week, we should be caught up. And it is already that time again. Just a reminder that the leaf back will start at the beginning of October. It's hard to believe it's already that time of year already, but it will be. And the fall mulch giveaway will be on October the 7th, which will be the first Saturday in October. So I just want to remind everybody of those things. Okay. Update on the paving. Paving started today. I think Peter sent out a kind of a memo earlier saying that they got prep and grinding done on 2.5 streets. So Grant will be the first one they will do, and then they'll do the portion of 4th, and then they'll jump right over on Jordan and into Alexander, and then they'll jump across town to Gadke. So they did get started. We initiated the notice to proceed, so everything is good and they're ready to go. So they won't be here near the 60 days that is allowed. In fact, I have a feeling they'll be done sometime next week, weather permitting. Because they already had Grant Street prepped within several hours today. They were already up on 4th. Edges were cleared and they were ready to pave. So they're moving ahead very quickly. We just got the garbage truck, the new trash truck came back today. The guys went and picked it up, so the graphics are done, and it will be available tomorrow night for our community outreach that we will have. So it is here. Graphics are done, truck is ready. I've got a trainer that's actually coming tomorrow to work with my drivers from the Greensboro office where we bought the trucks, to just some tidy up, make sure that they know all the functions, that kind of stuff. So that will be going on tomorrow as well. It's going to be a busy trash day tomorrow. So, CCAP update. Just one thing to announce. I still didn't get any responses on the letters. So at the Miss Anna's help, we have created it as a DocuSign document, and we have sent them out again electronically. So hopefully we will get some responses. We did get a response today with a question. So hopefully we will get those in as quick as possible. Other than certified mail, that's kind of where we're at this point. So we're trying other means before we get to that point. And we got to get this thing moving because we need to be done soon. Well, before this other one kicks in, but we've only got till June next year, and it will not be renewed if we don't get everything done. So we're trying everything we can to get these signatures so we can get the permits approved. So that's where we are with it. And then one final is Johnny Whalen, our mechanic, has turned in his resignation. So I will be down a mechanic as of the end of next week. Still, I have resources. Chad is still available, so we're not going to worry too bad. But I've also had some interest shown by several people. So hopefully it'll move pretty quickly. Once we advertise the job, we'll get that going. And then just a reminder, I think I already mentioned it, but the trash conversion info session will be tomorrow here at Town Hall from 6, I believe it's 6 to 8. Is that right?
And Joel and I are going to stay up all night baking cookies.
So. Oh, we're just going to stay.
Yeah.
We might as well. And then we've got the 5K race on Saturday to the river. And then the new trash truck will begin on the 25th. That's awesome. Will be the new start date of the 25th. Now, I have no idea what that's going to look like at this point. We're going to give it our best shot on the 25th. So there may be change. We're going to be winging it here for a little bit, but we will get it taken care of. Everyone will get their garbage picked up, even if I have to use the other truck and several other people. We will figure it out. That's not a problem. But I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions from the board?
Now,
Thank you.
Will all of the cans need to be on the right-hand side of the road?
That would be great, but it depends. Certain neighborhoods, it's really not going to matter, because if one person doesn't put it on that side of the road, they're still going to turn around and come back. So if they're spread out, and as we were talking earlier today, I think about 80 to 85% people they're not even going to be affected. You know, they put their cans where they're supposed to. They do that, not a problem. It's the others that we're going to have.
Yeah. And of course, the
and
right
some
hand
of
depends on what
just,
side you're looking at.
And some of it's just about layout, you know, where their houses are located, especially Salisbury Avenue. Those are the ones that are kind of concerning me at this point, because they can't get their cans to the street. The incline, there's just nowhere to put them unless you set them in the middle of Salisbury Avenue, and that's not going to work. So, or on the sidewalk, which I can't reach that far. So, well, it's growing pains. We'll figure it out. We'll get things done. No worries. All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Finance report.
And Mayor, I'd like to introduce Heather Can. Heather's going to come forward and give the finance report, but I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce her in this setting. She has joined us as our new finance officer and bringing over 25 years of accounting experience in the both private sector as well as within local government. And we're very happy to have her on board. She's gotten right down to business here and started some training as well through the School of Government. And so with that, Heather, welcome and take it away.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's great to be here. You have the financial reports in the packet, and I spoke with John today regarding the audit, and it is on track to be complete on time, and that's really the only update that we have right now. So is there any questions?
Questions from the board?
Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
We're glad you're a part, so
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining
Glad
us.
to be here. That's one of the perks of being here and up here at 9 o'clock is no one has questions, right?
Welcome That's right. aboard. Welcome
I'll be
aboard.
here this time every time.
All right, and finally, the library report.
All right, good evening. So, the report that Beverly provided is in the packet. And some of the highlights were that, this past month, there were a few alumni from North Moran Elementary who collected school supplies and handed them out to current students. And Beverly wanted to make sure that everyone knows that the library is a great place to come for, if you need a quiet place to study or if you're tutoring. There's a desktop there that people are able to use. And just so everybody knows, the hours are Monday and Tuesday, 11 to 6, and Wednesday, 12 to 5. And programs have been planned through December, so make sure you're following the Facebook page to get those updates.
All right, great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you. All right, town manager report, Mr. Francis.
Well, thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Just a few notes I'll make. One is it's been an exciting few weeks between opening a park and trying to now turn the corner to start building another one. We've started some initial meetings with our designer and starting to put together a schedule for how we go through the design to the bid process and get to construction. It's looking like the construction will probably be starting early 2024, first quarter is our current timetable. So we're working towards that. The other note I wanted to offer is related to our generator. I continue to talk about that. It's currently, there's been some adjustments to the firmware in it. The issues that we've had apparently have to do with actually the gas supply coming into it and a regulator. They're thinking the regulator on the gas line is not big enough. It's causing some issues that are having the gas supply coming in not being enough. The way the generator was starting, it would try to start once, not like it, and then throw an alarm or a code that if that happened during a test phase, then the next time the generator needed to start, it would say, well, there's an issue, I can't start, and then we would manually override that. We didn't know what was happening in the moments that those were happening, but that's what our service people have told us is what was going on. But the recommendation is a change in the gas regulator coming into it. They are communicating with Vertex about that. So that's where we stand. And we think it's functioning. The other thing that happened with the firmware is it's going to try to start 3 times instead of just once before it throws the code. So we think that might even help, that just that process of trying to crank might resolve the gas flow issue through the 3 times versus the 1. But that's as good as I can explain that issue. Joel, I don't think there's anything else to say about the generator, right? But appreciate our folks here are very good about, especially police. They're around here, so they've gotten out there in the weather to turn it on and get the power going again. But we're continuing to be patient with it. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the board?
Is there going to be a cost in reference to that for the gas to invert those lines or whatever?
We don't know. We don't know the answer to that yet.
If they undersized it, there shouldn't be.
Right. Because that's what I was going to say. I don't think it should be if there's something that they're supposed to have taken care of initially to make sure it was running up to par for us.
Right.
When you get the white squirrels and put them in little cages.
Yeah, they could put a Peloton bike out there. I could use it. So. Oh, all right. Thank you, Mr. Franzese. We'll move on to Question comments from the board members. Mr. Morgan.
It's been an interesting evening. I think that we owe the residents of Hawkinstown not necessarily an apology, but we need to do more to involve them in what we're doing down the road. And I think you made a good step in that tonight, but I think we need to do more. They're our neighbors, and they're in our ETJ, and I think that we need to develop better communication with the residents, especially those that are willing to make the effort to talk with us and get them more involved in the processes involving staff and everything else that we do.
Thank you. Mr. Howe.
Sure. Start with just great news on the parks. $500,000 for our park out here. That is welcome. We can't get started fast enough. Look forward to it. I think I've shared this before. Before I joined the board, I was skeptical that this park was a good idea, but after seeing it, I think maybe March a year ago, I said, "Wow, this is gonna be really cool." So I'm really excited. And sorry I missed last Friday. I had 3 or 4 people from Davidson County tell me that my name was called and that they were disappointed I wasn't there. So great that that's done. I drive by it every day. It looks fantastic. So well done, everyone. Well done, the staff. You guys are just killing it. You're doing a great job. Tonight it was tough. I know it's contentious. I know some folks are going home or at home. They're disappointed. I do understand. I get it. I think, as a board, as a town, we have an obligation, or we will have an obligation at some point in the future if this project does go to completion. And I do hope Mr. Jones and his development staff and our development team, they will take every opportunity to involve the community, engage with the community, and be good neighbors and good stewards of this familial and ancestral land out there. And I look forward to, like Mr. Morgan said, further engaging with the folks out in that part of our town, or at least kind of on the periphery of our town, and getting them more involved. That's a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Ms. Sledge.
Yeah, I said before that I'd struggled with this decision, and I know how disappointed those folks from Hawkinstown are. I truly believe that it's for the betterment of Spencer that we made this decision tonight. Growth is coming, and if we don't control it, if we don't try to do the best job that we can to control it, then we have not done our duty as elected officials who were put here to look out for the entire community. Yeah, we had a great time Friday. Sorry we missed you. But there were so many people there. There were people there that I thought I knew were going to be there that I never saw, like the people from economic development. And I know they were there, but I mean, there were so many people, I'm not even sure who wasn't there. So thanks for everybody who came out. I really do appreciate all the people who came out tonight and the people who came out on Thursday night to let us know, what their concerns are. And perhaps there is a way that we can work with them to be sure that those concerns are addressed down the road. And I forgot to bring his other treat that I usually give him his pill with. So he is ready for that. But it's a privilege to be here, to work with this group, and to know that we are trying to do the very best we can for all of our community. So thank you all for that privilege, and thank you all for the staff for all their hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Mr. Muhammad.
It was a tough decision this evening. We can agree to disagree, but at the same token, with growth and development, we want to do what's best for the town and the residents. I say we do need to embrace the residents of the Hawkinstown area, and not just the residents of Hawkinstown area, but the whole town on a whole, because the people here in this town need to get more involved. And it was good to see the citizens out here today and hear about the citizens that were here on Thursday, but on a regular basis, we should have the community involved. If there's another way that we can reach out to the masses of the community or get them to be involved in these planning boards and the different organizations that the town has to offer, so that they can have more say, so they can go back to their respective areas of the town, just like Mr. Arthur Miller was stating that, you know, he was one of the younger guys back in the day with, you know, the area of Hawkinstown. You know, that way we can continue to have community resident leaders that are well informed and can help make sound decisions as well. And I also want to thank, you know, the department heads and all the staff and the board for all that we're doing, and these streets cleared too. That's important with all these storms we have, seeing a lot of branches throughout the town. You know, it's good seeing the residents are getting everything to the curb and ready to be picked up as well. And you know, I see some trees that fell and things that have been addressed, and just wanted to say thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem.
I feel good about our town because I think we're taking care of business, taking care of our employees, and they are taking care of us. And I think we have our eyes on the prize, on the vision ahead. And I think we need to make sure that we keep it there, because it's time for us to step up and do this. And I really, really want to thank all of the people from Hawkinstown who came out. They showed America at its best and how America's supposed to work. Discussion, compromising, and I'm sure there's going to be some compromising. And I think they're going to find that Mr. Jones will be a very a person they can work with. So I feel good about this development. I felt bad about disappointing friends, but I had to look at my role as a board member and what was best for Spencer, and I had to choose to vote with my heart and my head, mainly my head this time. But anyway, I feel good about it, and I'm at peace with it, and I think we're going to have a great year.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll keep my remarks brief because I know it is late. I'll just on you know, the things that we had to consider tonight. You know, while they're tough conversations, I would say that everything we considered tonight was a good thing, because it's a sign of positive things happening in Spencer. It's a signs of people placing faith in Spencer, wanting to live in Spencer, wanting to invest money in Spencer. And those are things that, let's face it, there was a period for many years that wasn't happening. And so I think we are in a very fortunate time right now. And with being in fortunate times also comes great responsibility for our board and our staff. And it's incumbent upon us to make the right decisions for the town as a whole. And so I appreciate the thought that all of our board members put into it, because all of the perspectives shared tonight were valid. And I think there was good and healthy discussion. And so I thank you for the time that you put into considering this, because it is a monumental decision, not only for our town, but for the Hawkinstown neighborhood as well. And then I want to thank our staff too for the time that's been put into it, because I know there have been many, many hours put into this process, making sure that we followed the process according to the letter of the law, involving, reaching out to involve the community, presentations that have been developed, lots of PowerPoint slides by Mr. Blunt. But again, I just want the board to understand this is not the first one of these types of things we're going to have to consider, because we're seeing the momentum, and we're going to continue to see these types of requests. And if we can approach everyone like we've approached this one, with thought, with reasoning, with staff that are looking into all the details, and with us as a board listening to our community, and, you know, regardless, the outcome that they wanted maybe didn't happen, but I hope that it can down the road, that many of their concerns, that seeing is believing, but once this happens, they will see that many of those concerns are alleviated, that they weren't valid. And so that is my hope, and that is my prayer. And again, we're going to continue to see these types of things, and that is a sign of positive progress. Speaking of positive progress and community involvement and engagement, I want to encourage everybody to come out for the start of Rowan County Creek Week. It starts on Saturday, beginning at 1:30. Race registration for the second annual Race to the River 5K will start here at Park Plaza. Beginning at 1 o'clock, there's a medication take-back event here that will go up until 3 or shortly before that. So any medications that folks need to dispose of, there'll be an opportunity with the health department and our police department to drop off medication. 1:30 until basically 2:45 p.m. There will be race registration for those that want to register on site for the 5K or for the fun run. And then at 2:45, there will be a group from the Pedal Factory that will be leaving here, traveling to the Wilcox Bridge and to our new Yadkin River Trailhead. And then right behind that, at 3 o'clock, the Race to the River 5K will start at the fire department, and it will go out to the rock at the new Yadkin River Trailhead. That is the finish line. And then at 4 p.m., the fun run will start, and kids 12 and under can run in that. It will go from the Trailhead Rock across the Wilcox Bridge and back again for a half-mile fun run. There are going to be medals for all ages, for I think 5-year age groups, and it promises to be fun because from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock, there's going to be food and beverage, as well as entertainment. Number 9 Cole will be starting to perform at 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock. And then for those of you that like to paddle at 6 o'clock, sorry, there will be a sunset paddle with Rocco River Adventures that will leave from the kayak and boat launch on the Davidson County side of the bridge. And that will conclude the kickoff for many other events that will be happening during the week for Rowan County Creek Week. So I encourage you to sign up for one or all of the events.
There's also a walk on Monday at Stadback Falls.
That's right. And that's sponsored by the, or being led by the Three Rivers Land Trust.
Yeah, I've signed up for that. For those of us who might not be able to make the run.
You walked it last year, though, and you won a medal.
I did, and I would like to do that again, but I have a 2 o'clock board meeting with the foundation that I'm part of, and I'm the treasurer for the foundation, so I don't think I can get away from that.
So that means it is an open competition. You don't have to beat out Miss Sledge because
right. Yeah.
Somebody can take her place.
Yeah.
It won't be me.
Well, I did my portion of the walk the other day after the ribbon cutting, because Peter and I trucked it with some folks from Parks. Okay, yeah. So they told me I'd done at least a third of that fun run. I mean, not the fun run, the 5K.
Well, encourage people to sign up. Race sign up and fun run sign up is on runsignup.com through the Salisbury Rowan Runners Association. So come out. I think the high is going to be 80 degrees, the low of 56. So it's going to be a beautiful day to be outdoors.
Saturday, there's a lot of hands on deck,
Yes.
almost every hand on deck, I'd say. And so certainly appreciate our staff getting involved to support this really fun event. And I will say I've registered today to run the 5K. So if you want to find the slowest runner, it'll probably be me.
Well, then maybe I'll come in after I finish my board meeting and beat you.
You might still be able to catch him.
There you go.
think that's a challenge, or maybe a promise.
He looks like a runner, Pat.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I did get out my shoes. I did get out my shoes today to check them out. See what? Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Is there any need for executive session this evening? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move that we adjourn.
I got two.
All right. There's a motion by Mr. Morgan, second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right. All opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.